In the quiet towns of Ohio, small parks sit peacefully during the day. Children laugh on swings, and dogs chase frisbees across green lawns. But as night falls, these parks reveal a darker truth. Visitors whisper of statues moving when no one is watching. Shadows stretch unnaturally, following footsteps that seem to echo from nowhere. Some say ghostly figures linger near the playgrounds, watching, waiting. Others hear whispers calling their names or see lights flickering around empty fountains. Tonight, we venture into the most haunted small-town parks in Ohio, where statues move, shadows twist, and the past refuses to remain silent. If you walked through one of these parks after dark, would you investigate the moving statues, or would you run while you still could? Hello, my dear friend. I hope you are safe tonight, because what we are about to explore is not for the faint of heart. Ohio may seem quiet and ordinary, but hidden within its small-town parks are places where the supernatural lingers. Some parks are home to statues that have been reported moving on their own. Others seem to have shadows that creep along paths and playgrounds, vanishing the moment you look directly at them. Visitors speak of cold drafts, whispers, and footsteps when no one is there. Some swear that the parks themselves watch, waiting for the night to fall so they can reveal their dark secrets. Before we step inside, let me ask you, if you could see a statue blink or move in the corner of your eye, would you approach it to investigate, or would you flee into the safety of the night? Take a deep breath, and let us wander into the haunted small-town parks of Ohio, where every shadow and statue has a story. Willow Creek Park stretches along the gentle curve of a winding creek. Shaded by towering oaks and maples that have stood for decades. The centerpiece is a large fountain, worn by time, its stone surface mottled with age and moss. Surrounding the fountain are angel statues, their forms carved with meticulous care, wings spread and eyes gazing outward. As though silently watching all who enter the park. During the day, the park has an almost serene charm. Children play along the grassy paths, birds weave between branches, and the creek flows with a soft murmur. Yet those who linger near the fountain speak of a sensation that chills the spine. The eyes of the angel statues seem to follow every movement. A subtle pressure, a quiet awareness, as if each carved gaze carries a sentient weight. Visitors have described seeing the wings of the angels shift imperceptibly. A flutter so slight it could be dismissed as a trick of light. But when observed carefully, there is an uncanny rhythm. As if the stone figures are preparing to move. Shadows cast by the surrounding trees play across the wings, lending them the illusion of motion. Yet some insist the movement is far too deliberate to be merely shadow. As dusk approaches, the park transforms. The colors of the sky bleed into shades of amber and violet. And the air grows cool and heavy. And mist rises from Willow Creek, curling around the fountain. And creeping along the paths within the mist, faint sounds are sometimes discernible. Whispers that carry long-forgotten names and words that vanish as soon as the ear tunes to them. Those who hear these voices report a mix of sadness and urgency, a sense that the park holds memories it cannot release. The creek itself seems to have a voice. Its waters ripple silently over submerged stones. Yet some visitors swear they hear soft footfalls along the banks when no one walks there. Reflections in the creek sometimes show fleeting figures, too vague to identify. But enough to spark unease. The combination of mist, whispers, and reflected shadows creates an atmosphere that feels both alive and watchful. Paths that lead away from the fountain wind through the older sections of the park, where the grass is taller and the trees cluster more densely. Here, the shadows lengthen unnaturally, and the air grows colder. Some report hearing the echo of voices calling their names, distant but distinctly human. Others describe fleeting glimpses of shapes moving just beyond the periphery of vision, figures that dissolve when confronted directly. Others describe fleeting glimpses of shapes moving just beyond the periphery of vision, figures that dissolve when confronted directly. The statues themselves are a constant presence. Each one has its own character, from serene faces of calm devotion to expressions of quiet sorrow. The detail in the stone is striking, and for some, the angels appear to react to human emotion. Visitors with heavy hearts describe a sense of being weighed, a tangible pull that feels both protective and admonishing. The wings, curved and expansive, seem poised to either shelter or sweep away, depending on the observer's perception. At night, the park becomes a realm of heightened senses. The rustle of leaves, the distant hoot of an owl, and the subtle murmur of water combine with whispers that seem to come from nowhere. The statues appear more animated, shadows playing across their forms in ways that suggest movement beyond the imagination. Many who walk the park at night describe a profound unease. A feeling that they are not alone. Steps echo that are not their own. And fleeting shapes dart between trees. Yet the park is rarely threatening. Rather, it feels as if Willow Creek Park exists in a parallel rhythm. A place where the natural and supernatural coexist in a delicate balance. The whispers, shadows, and subtle movements create a narrative that visitors cannot fully decipher but sense is always present. The architecture of the park contributes to the mysterious atmosphere. Benches, wrought iron fences, and stone pathways are worn by decades of use. Yet they all seem arranged with intention. The layout guides movement, framing views of the fountain and statues in ways that emphasize the otherworldly quality of the environment. Even casual observers sense a choreography. As if the park is orchestrated to reveal its secrets in fragments to those willing to pay attention. Visitors often leave with memories that linger long after departing. The sensation of eyes watching, whispers of names once forgotten. And fleeting movements among the misted paths leave an indelible impression. The park is both serene and unsettling. A place where history, memory, and perhaps something more converge. The sensation of eyes watching, whispers of names once forgotten, and fleeting movements among the misted paths leave an indelible impression. Willow Creek Park remains a quiet testament to the unknown, a place where the ordinary merges with the inexplicable. Every shadow, whisper, and fluttering wing invites reflection on the mysteries hidden in plain sight. Those who experience the park cannot help but wonder what stories the statues hold, what secrets the creek carries, and what it truly means when the wings of stone seem poised for flight. For those who venture into Willow Creek Park, the experience is unforgettable. The sensation of being observed. The cold embrace of mist. And the soft chorus of whispers. Create a narrative that is both haunting and beautiful. The park endures as a space where memory and presence intersect. A place that quietly reminds all who enter that some mysteries are meant to be felt rather than understood. Even after leaving, the images linger, eyes that follow, wings that flutter. And the soft, persistent whisper of forgotten names carried on the mist. From Willow Creek. The park holds its stories silently, awaiting the next visitor who will walk its paths. And perhaps, hear what the angels have to say. Maplewood Gardens stretches across a quiet corner of the city. Its pathways winding through trees that have stood for decades. Ornate benches line the paths, each carved with intricate designs that tell stories long forgotten. Stone figures stand among the foliage, depicting animals, dancers, and mythical creatures. Their surfaces weathered but detailed, appearing frozen in time. Visitors during the day notice the beauty and serenity of the gardens. Sunlight filters through the leaves, casting shifting patterns across the cobblestones. Birds call softly in the branches. And the scent of flowers drifts on the breeze. Yet there is a subtle unease, a feeling that the park watches even when it seems empty. That the statues are not entirely still. As evening approaches, the gardens take on a different character. Shadows deepen beneath the trees. And the figures seem to grow taller, more imposing. Travelers who linger too long report the unsettling sensation that statues have shifted their positions, turning slightly, leaning closer, or facing a new direction. The effect is subtle, but enough to spark a creeping unease. That the park itself is aware of those who walk its paths. Whispers echo softly among the trees, voices that are faint and indistinct, urging visitors to leave. Sometimes the whispers are accompanied by a fleeting touch on the shoulder or the back, a brushing that leaves a chill despite the warm air. Those who experience it describe a sensation of being guided, or perhaps warned, as if unseen hands are directing movement through the winding trails. The stone figures are the most unsettling aspect of the gardens. By day they are objects of art, admired and photographed. By night, they seem almost alive. Travelers describe moments when they glance away and return to see a statue closer than before, or facing them in a way it had not previously. The effect is never violent, but it is precise, deliberate, and impossible to explain. Benches appear to shift as well. A place to sit may feel farther down a path than it had moments earlier, or the angle of a backrest changes ever so slightly. The combination of movement, touch, and whispers creates an atmosphere thick with tension, making it clear that Maplewood Gardens is no ordinary park. Those who venture deeper into the garden find winding paths that seem to extend beyond expectation. Small clearings appear, illuminated by the faint glow of street lamps or moonlight reflecting off leaves and stone. The statues here are arranged in intricate patterns, almost like guardians of the spaces, watching over each path, each visitor, with silent vigilance. The feeling of being observed grows stronger the further one walks, as though the park measures time and movement with its own awareness. Visitors often describe disorientation, a sense that the paths have shifted when they attempt to retrace their steps. Benches and statues may appear where none had stood before. Or the trail curves differently, leading to places previously unseen. There is a sense that the garden protects itself, preserving its secrets from those who might intrude. Even in the bright light of day, the park maintains a subtle tension. Sunlight highlights carvings in the statues that appear to change with the angle of observation. Shadows twist and stretch across the stone figures, giving them a fleeting liveliness. The air seems to carry soft sighs, an echo of the whispered warnings that become more tangible after dusk. Some visitors have reported moments of direct interaction. A hand might brush lightly against an arm as they pass a statue. Or a footstep behind them aligns with their pace for several moments, only to vanish without a sound. These experiences are brief and fleeting, but they leave a lasting impression. As if the garden has acknowledged their presence and decided whether to permit their continued journey. Maplewood Gardens is a place where the ordinary and extraordinary coexist. It offers beauty, serenity, and the appearance of normalcy. Yet beneath the surface lies an atmosphere thick with presence and unseen movement. Every statue, bench, and tree contributes to a tapestry of subtle interactions, creating a park that is as alive as it is silent. To walk the paths of Maplewood Gardens is to enter a world in which perception and reality blur. Visitors become acutely aware of their surroundings, of shadows that do not match their source, of whispers that carry meaning only in context, and of the persistent feeling of being observed. The garden is patient and deliberate, moving in ways that are imperceptible until acknowledged, guiding, warning, and occasionally startling those who venture too far. Ultimately, Maplewood Gardens is a place of mystery. Its beauty is undeniable, yet its secrets are palpable. The statues, benches, and winding paths are more than mere decoration. They are participants in an ongoing, silent interaction with anyone who enters. Visitors leave with the impression of having been touched by something unseen. A subtle reminder that the park is alive in ways that defy explanation. And that the whispers among the trees may never truly cease. Elm Street Playground sits at the corner of a quiet neighborhood, bathed in sunlight during the day with laughter echoing from the swings and slides. As the sun begins to set, the atmosphere shifts. Shadows stretch across the ground, and the colors of the playground fade into muted tones. The cheerful air transforms into a quiet tension, as though the park itself is holding its breath. The swings sway gently, sometimes without wind, moving back and forth with a rhythm that seems deliberate. The sound of chains creaking pierces the stillness, carrying an uncanny echo through the empty park. Statues of children dot the playground, frozen in mid-laughter or mid-run. Visitors report that these figures appear to change pose when observed from different angles. A statue that once pointed toward the sandbox may now face the slide, and another seems to have tilted its head, watching passers-by. The subtle shifts are unsettling, suggesting that the playground has a life of its own after dark. Beneath the slides and climbing frames, shadows gather and linger. They move just beyond clear sight, darting between the supports and pillars. When approached, they vanish, leaving only the faint rustle of leaves. Some visitors feel as though unseen eyes are tracking their every movement. A presence that is neither malicious nor comforting, but impossible to ignore. The soundscape of the playground changes as well. Laughter carries through the air, light and distant, but with no discernible source. The giggles are irregular, sometimes joyous, sometimes tinged with something unfamiliar. Occasionally, the laughter is accompanied by the faint squeak of a swing or the soft thud of footsteps on the mulch, though no one is there. The auditory illusion is convincing, creating a sense that the playground is occupied by unseen children who never truly leave. Benches near the sandbox and along the walkways seem to harbor quiet energy. Sitting on them feels different at night. Some report brief chills, a sensation of invisible hands brushing against shoulders, or a pressure that settles over the back. As if something is leaning close. These occurrences are fleeting but powerful, leaving visitors tense and hyper-aware of their surroundings. The slides, once symbols of carefree fun, take on a more sinister quality. Shadows twist along their curves. And the hollow thump of metal seems amplified in the still night air. Visitors note that the climb to the top feels longer than expected. And the descent is accompanied by an almost imperceptible whisper, echoing through the structure. Climbing structures cast strange silhouettes that dance against the ground, and the feeling of being watched grows stronger with each step. Paths winding through the playground are lined with low shrubs and trees that rustle in the slightest breeze. The movement creates shifting patterns of shadow that can startle the unwary. Shapes appear and vanish among the leaves, and the interplay of darkness and light tricks the eye. Those who linger report feeling drawn toward certain areas, as if the park is guiding them along invisible routes. A sense of time distortion often accompanies a visit after dark. Minutes seem to stretch, and the normal rhythm of walking or exploring feels altered. Some visitors find themselves retracing steps they thought they had already taken, or noticing swings moving in ways they did not witness moments before. The subtle disorientation enhances the eerie quality of the playground, reinforcing the impression that it exists in a space slightly removed from the ordinary world. Despite the unsettling atmosphere, many are captivated by the allure of Elm Street Playground at night. It is a place of mystery and quiet fascination, where the ordinary rules of perception and expectation no longer fully apply. Each creak of a swing, each whispering shadow, and each movement of a statue contributes to a narrative written in silence, shaping the park into a living story of presence and absence. When the moon rises above the treetops, casting pale light over the slides and swings, shadows stretch long and distort. Laughter drifts faintly on the breeze, and statues seem to watch more intently. The combination of subtle motion, unexpected sounds, and shifting shadows creates an experience that lingers long after leaving the park. Elm Street Playground at night is a reminder that familiar places can harbor unseen mysteries. The echoes of laughter, the movement of shadows, and the subtle shifts in the environment suggest a world layered just beneath the surface, waiting to be noticed. Visitors depart with a heightened awareness, carrying the memory of a park that never truly sleeps, a space where the line between the seen and the unseen is blurred, and where the night holds its own quiet stories. Oak Hollow Park stretches quietly beneath a sky veiled with shifting clouds. The landscape is serene yet carries a subtle unease, the trees lining winding paths standing tall and silent, their branches reaching out like skeletal arms. At the highest point of the park, a lone statue occupies a small hill, carved from stone that has weathered decades of sun, rain, and wind. Its features are worn, but the figure remains striking, a sentinel overlooking the grass below with an aura that unsettles even the most casual visitor. Travelers approaching the hill often notice an odd sensation. The statue seems to shift in position, not drastically, but enough to unsettle the mind. Shadows stretch across the lawn as sunlight filters through the leaves. And the statue's presence dominates the scene, commanding attention with an almost unnatural authority. Walking along the paths, visitors report feeling observed. The air seems heavier around the statue, as though it exerts a quiet influence on those nearby. Some have claimed to see its head turn slowly, pivoting in perfect silence to follow their steps across the grass. This movement is subtle, almost imperceptible at first, yet undeniable once noticed. The combination of stillness and the impression of motion creates a tension that is difficult to shake, a creeping awareness that the figure is aware, patient, and waiting. The wind through Oak Hollow carries more than the scent of grass and earth. Whispers softly, brushing past ears in a way that almost resembles speech. Words are indistinct, fragmentary, almost like warnings carried just beyond comprehension. Some visitors pause mid-step, straining to catch the sound, only to find it dissipating as quickly as it arrived. The whispers seem tied to the statue, emanating from its presence, an intangible energy that makes the park feel alive in a way that is unsettling and compelling at once. Paths twist and bend beneath the towering oaks, creating spaces of light and shadow that change with the movement of the sun. In these shaded areas, the feeling of being watched intensifies. Travelers report glancing behind them, half expecting to see someone else following, only to find the paths empty. The eyes of the statue, or perhaps the mind projecting them, seem to follow nonetheless. Every step becomes deliberate, measured, as if the park itself were testing the intentions of those who walk within it. The hill with the statue offers a panoramic view of the park. Yet it is not entirely comforting. The farther one looks, the more details emerge in the corners of perception. Shapes shifting in the shadows. And the constant sensation of movement just beyond the direct line of sight. The statue remains at the center, unmoving in form yet dynamic in presence. A focal point that draws both curiosity and unease. Even in the absence of people, Oak Hollow Park feels inhabited. Leaves rustle in patterns that suggest unseen passage, and distant noises echo oddly, carrying with them a tension that is difficult to define. Some visitors have claimed to hear footsteps following theirs, soft and deliberate, though no one else is visible. The effect is cumulative, layering a psychological weight atop the natural beauty of the park, transforming it into a place where perception bends and reality feels malleable. At dusk, the atmosphere of Oak Hollow shifts further. Shadows lengthen, coalescing around the statue and the trees, creating forms that appear almost human in the fading light. The whispers grow more distinct, though still unintelligible, drifting across the grass and slipping through the branches. The wind intensifies in gusts, carrying with it the faint scent of damp earth and a subtle chill that raises the hair on the back of the neck. Travelers often find themselves quickening their pace, drawn by an instinctive need to leave, while the statue remains impassive, overseeing the park with unwavering focus. Even those who remain into the evening sense the statue's quiet dominion. Its gaze, real or imagined, exerts a persistent pressure on the mind, inviting contemplation of both the visible and the unseen. Visitors describe a feeling of being measured, of intentions weighed and recorded, and a subtle compulsion to act with care within the space. Each step, each glance, seems magnified in significance, leaving a lasting impression that the park is more than mere trees and grass. It is a stage for observation, reflection, and something deeper, beyond comprehension. Oak Hollow Park endures as a space of duality, serene in its natural beauty, yet laden with tension and subtle mystery. The statue on the hill remains the center of this duality, a silent sentinel whose presence affects every path, every shadow, and every whisper carried by the wind. Travelers leave carrying memories of subtle movement, eerie whispers, and the unnerving impression that the figure on the hill watched as they departed, lingering in perception long after the park has faded from sight. Crescent Moon Park sits at the edge of a quiet town, where the trees arch overhead to form a canopy that filters the light. Into soft, dappled patterns across the ground. At the heart of the park lies a small stone labyrinth, its pathways lined with statues carved from pale granite. Each figure has a distinct presence, some cloaked, some hooded, others frozen mid-gesture. And all appear to observe the visitor with an intensity that seems almost alive. During the day, the labyrinth is tranquil. The crunch of gravel beneath footsteps, the whisper of wind through leaves, and the distant hum of the town create a peaceful ambience. Yet, for those who linger near the statues, there is a subtle unease. The statues seem to shift imperceptibly when attention wavers, a movement so slight it could be dismissed as illusion, yet undeniably present for those who notice. Visitors attempting to navigate the labyrinth often describe an uncanny sensation of being guided or misled. The paths seem longer than expected, and familiar landmarks appear in different positions, as if the labyrinth rearranges itself to suit an unseen will. Some hear voices whispering their names, soft and distant, growing closer when they pause and fading when they strain to listen. As twilight descends, the atmosphere of Crescent Moon Park transforms. Shadows stretch and coil along the labyrinth walls, and the statues take on a more imposing presence. Their features, sharp in the fading light, appear to follow every step, and the stone eyes seem to glimmer with a life of their own. Those walking the labyrinth report an intensified sensation of being watched, a cold awareness that cannot be explained by the shifting light or the imagination. Many recount the sensation of invisible hands brushing against them. Cold fingers press against shoulders or trail along arms, vanishing the moment they turn to confront the source. The touch is never threatening in a direct way, yet it evokes a profound sense of vulnerability, as if the labyrinth itself is asserting dominance over those who enter. The labyrinth's design seems to amplify these experiences. Corners are tight and winding, creating pockets where sound is muted or distorted. The rustle of leaves becomes sharper, the whisper of wind transforms into murmurs, and the ambient noises of the park take on an eerie resonance. Visitors often pause, feeling the labyrinth's pulse, a rhythm of quiet intent that seems to anticipate each step. Even in daylight, the labyrinth feels removed from ordinary time. Hours can pass unnoticed as visitors struggle to reach the exit. The shifting paths, the subtle repositioning of statues, and the voices that follow create an experience that blends disorientation with fascination. Some describe a sense of déjà vu, encountering the same stone figure multiple times, only to find it positioned differently upon second glance. Nightfall brings the labyrinth fully alive. The pale moon casts long, slanted shadows across the stones, transforming the statues into towering silhouettes. Their presence is heightened by the faint, ever-present mist that curls along the ground, clinging to ankles and drifting up to the knees of those walking the paths. In this setting, the whispers become clearer, a soft chorus of names and words that seem to emanate from both the statues and the mist itself. Those who brave the labyrinth at night often speak of an unsettling intimacy. The voices call with familiarity, referencing memories or personal details that defy explanation. The shadows between the statues seem to shift independently, elongating and retreating with intent. Some catch glimpses of movement out of the corner of their eye, of figures passing behind stone walls or appearing at dead ends, only to vanish when fully observed. The labyrinth seems to demand attention and respect. Hasty steps or careless movement often result in disorientation. As paths loop unexpectedly and statues seem to shift just enough to block progress. As if the park is attuned to their presence. Producing subtle but unmistakable responses, a whisper in the wind, a shifting shadow, or a cold touch. Despite the unsettling experiences, the labyrinth has an allure. Its beauty, combined with the palpable sense of mystery, draws people back. Even after encounters that are disquieting. Some describe a strange comfort in the whispers, as if the park, though eerie, carries a wisdom or memory from another time. The statues, though imposing, provide a sense of continuity, their silent vigilance suggesting stories that stretch beyond human comprehension. Crescent Moon Park and its labyrinth occupy a space between the familiar and the inexplicable. Visitors leave with lingering impressions, the sensation of eyes watching, names called softly from nowhere, and the fleeting touch of unseen hands. The experience is both unsettling and captivating, a dance of perception and reality where the ordinary rules do not apply. Even after departing, the memory of the labyrinth endures. The shifting statues, the whispers that seem to follow. And the cold, invisible presences leave a lasting mark on the mind. Crescent Moon Park remains a place where curiosity meets the unknown. Where each journey through the stone paths reveals layers of mystery and hidden depth. For those who walk the labyrinth, the experience is unforgettable. The stone figures. The curling mist. The shifting paths. And the whispered names. Create a narrative that is felt as much as it is seen. Crescent Moon Park is more than a park. It is a living memory. A space where time perception and perhaps something beyond human understanding converge. In a haunting beautiful tapestry. Shadowbrook Park lies nestled within a quiet corner of the town, a place where nature weaves seamlessly with carefully placed stone pathways. A small stream winds its way through the park, crossed by an old stone bridge whose surface has worn smooth over decades of use. During the day, the park is serene, sunlight glinting off the water and birds calling from the surrounding trees. But as evening falls, an air of mystery descends, transforming the familiar into something far more enigmatic. The statues scattered throughout the park draw the attention of visitors. Carved animals, birds, and woodland creatures appear frozen in motion during daylight hours. Their intricate details reveal the skill of the artists who placed them, yet at night these figures seem to take on a life of their own. Travelers have reported noticing subtle shifts in position. A rabbit statue may face a different direction, a fox may move closer to a path. The changes are never dramatic, but enough to suggest that the park does not remain entirely still after dark. Beneath the stone bridge, shadows gather and linger. They are formless at first glance, darker patches against the flowing water. Yet the sensation of being watched is unmistakable. Those who pause too long near the stream feel an awareness that is not their own. As if unseen eyes are tracking every movement. Some claim that the shadows move in sync with their steps, gliding just beyond the edges of vision. The effect is subtle, but the tension it creates can be overwhelming. A quiet insistence that the visitor is not alone. Soft whispers seem to follow those who linger near the water. The voices are faint and indistinct, more sensation than speech, a brushing of sound that slips through the mind without fully forming words. They beckon, caution, or simply observe, leaving a lingering unease that heightens with every step. It is a sound that cannot be traced, a presence that cannot be seen, yet it is felt deeply, as if the park itself communicates through subtle cues. A lingering unease that heightens with every step. Visitors walking the winding paths of Shadowbrook Park often describe a distortion of time. Moments stretch and contract unpredictably. A path that seems short in the daylight may appear to extend endlessly under the dim glow of evening. The statues, already unsettling in their shifting positions, add to the disorientation. Travelers may find themselves retracing steps only to discover the same sculpture facing them from a slightly altered angle. Or a familiar clearing that seems just a little different than before. The stone bridge serves as a focal point for the park's mysterious activity. Its arches cast long shadows across the stream, rippling in the water below. The surface of the bridge feels colder at night, and those who cross it sometimes hear soft footsteps that echo unnaturally against the stones. Shadows beneath the arches seem to linger longer than light would allow, and the sound of water is accompanied by faint murmurs that seem to rise from the streambed itself. The air within Shadowbrook Park is thick with presence. Even the wind seems measured, whispering through the trees in a way that suggests intent. Visitors report the sensation of being guided along paths, gently pushed or pulled by forces unseen. Benches and clearings that appear inviting during the day may become areas of unease at night, drawing attention with a subtle insistence. As if the park itself decides where to lead each individual. The park's quiet corners reveal further mysteries. Leaves shift and flutter in patterns that do not align with the breeze. Shadows stretch across the ground, sometimes taking forms reminiscent of human figures, yet dissolving when approached. Travelers experience a growing awareness that the park has a memory of those who walk its paths. And that each movement is noted and reflected subtly in the environment. Stone statues near the water's edge are particularly disconcerting. Visitors often glance at them, only to see slight changes in posture or angle moments later. A deer may appear to watch from a different position. A bird's gaze may follow the observer along the path. The sense of surveillance is accompanied by a palpable chill. A reminder that the park is not simply a space of leisure, but a living tableau with its own rhythms and awareness. Whispers persist throughout the park, rising and falling like the ebb of the stream itself. They are never intrusive, yet they cannot be ignored. Those who listen too closely may find themselves drawn deeper into the winding paths, following sounds that seem to come from no specific source. The longer one remains, the more pronounced the feeling of being observed becomes, as if the park evaluates the presence of each visitor and responds accordingly. Shadowbrook Park is a place where the ordinary and extraordinary coexist. By day, it offers beauty, calm, and respite. By night, it transforms into a realm of subtle interactions, where statues shift, shadows watch, and whispers follow. The experience is immersive and persistent, leaving a lasting impression on those who venture beyond the safe daylight paths. To traverse Shadowbrook Park is to enter a world where perception is tested. And the unseen is ever present. Every step along the cobblestone paths. Every pause near the stream. Every glance at the statues contributes to an awareness that is both subtle and undeniable. Visitors leave with the memory of a place that is alive in ways beyond explanation. A park that exists in the intersection of beauty and mystery, shadow and presence. Pinecrest Park stretches along a quiet neighborhood, its pathways lined with carved wooden figures. By day, the figures appear benign, frozen in poses that suggest moments of everyday life. Children playing nearby often pause to stare at the intricate carvings, admiring the craftsmanship, unaware of the subtle unease that seems to linger in the air. The figures seem to hold a secret, their expressions frozen in time, their poses telling a story of a bygone era. The atmosphere is heavy with unease, a sense of foreboding hangs in the air, like a whispered secret. As twilight falls, the atmosphere begins to shift. Shadows lengthen across the park, stretching from the trees and statues alike. The wooden figures, once inert, seem to observe visitors more closely. Some travelers report sensing the figures turning their heads toward them, the movement subtle but unmistakable. It is as if the statues are aware of their presence, tracking each step along the winding paths. A sudden chill often accompanies these experiences. Visitors speak of feeling unseen hands brush past their shoulders. Fleeting and cold, leaving a tingling sensation along the skin. The temperature drops in certain areas. And the air feels heavier, charged with a presence that cannot be seen but is undeniably felt. Each gust of wind seems to carry whispers. The faint rustling of leaves blending with the sensation of being watched. The pathways of Pinecrest Park are narrow, flanked by clusters of trees and patches of undergrowth. As darkness deepens, the carved figures cast shadows that stretch unnaturally across the ground. The shapes bend and elongate in ways that defy simple explanation, moving independently from the statues themselves. Some visitors have noted the shadows twisting to follow them, lingering at the edge of vision, retreating only when closely observed. Footsteps echo in the empty park, though often no one else is present. The creak of wooden benches and the rustle of leaves combine with the subtle movements of the statues to create an unsettling soundscape. Even the most familiar paths feel different after sunset. Distorted by the play of shadow and the faint impression of movement where none should exist. The carved figures themselves are varied in appearance. Some depict children in mid-run or mid-laugh, while others portray adults frozen in gestures of conversation or contemplation. By night, these details seem to take on a new life. Eyes carved into the wood appear deeper, darker, as though absorbing the faint light. Limbs and torsos stretch subtly in shadow, creating the impression of motion where none is physically possible. Visitors who pause near certain statues often report a sensation of being drawn into the scene. The air grows colder, and the wooden figures seem more present, as if awaiting acknowledgement. A brief moment of stillness in the park can feel endless, with the quiet broken only by the distant echo of wind through the trees, or the soft thump of something moving just beyond perception. Paths leading deeper into the park reveal clusters of figures. Some travelers have observed the figures subtly adjusting their positions, tilting their heads or shifting their stance between glances. The effect is disorienting, creating a sense that the park itself is alive, aware, and responsive. Time seems to bend in these moments, with minutes stretching longer than expected, and footsteps feeling heavier against the mulch-covered trails. Certain benches and clearings appear to act as focal points for the park's energy. Those who linger here report stronger sensations of presence. Cold air moves across the skin, whispers brush the ears, and shadows coalesce along the tree line. The carved figures appear closer, their forms more defined in the low light. Their positions suggest attention and intent. The combination of visual and sensory phenomena in Pinecrest Park at night leaves a lasting impression. Even brief visits linger in memory, the feeling of being observed or followed etched into consciousness. The wooden figures, the stretching shadows, and the subtle yet tangible presence of something unseen transform an ordinary park into a space charged with quiet mystery and unease. Despite the unsettling aura, Pinecrest Park draws a certain fascination. Visitors are compelled to return, to explore the twisting paths, and observe the carvings under the veil of night. Each visit reveals subtle changes, details that were not apparent before, and sensations that defy simple explanation. The park becomes a living narrative, shaped by the interplay of perception, shadow, and the unexplained movements of the figures within. By the time moonlight filters through the trees, Pinecrest Park is transformed. Shadows elongate across the paths, The wooden figures seem poised to move. And the wind carries a faint, almost inaudible whisper. The park exists in a space between reality and imagination, where the familiar is altered by the presence of the strange. Every visitor departs with a heightened awareness. A lingering impression that Pinecrest Park is more than a collection of carvings. It is a place where the night holds secrets, where shadows take on life, and where the ordinary becomes quietly, profoundly mysterious. A place where the night holds secrets, where shadows take on life, and where the ordinary becomes quietly, profoundly mysterious. Every visitor departs with a heightened awareness. A lingering impression that Pinecrest Park is more than a collection of carvings. It is a place where the night holds secrets, where shadows take on life, and where the ordinary becomes quietly, profoundly mysterious. Silver Lake Park stretches quietly around a small lake, its waters reflecting the shifting sky and the dark silhouettes of trees that line the shore. By day, the park is serene, a place where ducks once glided across the surface and the air carried the light scent of grass and water. Yet as night falls, the atmosphere shifts. Shadows stretch over the lake and the pathways, and the park takes on a presence that feels almost alive, as if it breathes softly under the cover of darkness. Visitors walking along the winding trails report a sense of being watched. The trees seem to lean closer, their branches whispering in the wind, carrying faint, indistinct cries that echo across the water. These sounds are fleeting and difficult to pinpoint, vanishing whenever one tries to focus on their source. The lake itself, calm in appearance, becomes a stage for subtle anomalies. Statues of swans, once resting solidly on the shore or in the shallow water, appear to float slightly above the surface after dark. The effect is quiet but unsettling, a gentle defiance of gravity that feels intentional, as if the figures are observing those who pass too closely. The pathways around Silver Lake are lined with shadows that shift at the edges of vision. Travelers speak of the sensation of invisible eyes tracking each step. A quiet pressure that weighs on the mind even when no one else is in sight. Footsteps echo softly on the gravel, though when turned to look, the trails are empty. The stillness of the night unbroken except by the occasional rustle of leaves. The lake mirrors the sky and the surrounding trees, yet it sometimes reflects more than what is present. Shapes appear along the waterline that dissolve when approached, and ripples disturb the surface without cause. Swans that should be fixed in stone drift imperceptibly, tilting or turning as though acknowledging the presence of onlookers. The effect is hypnotic and disorienting, blurring the line between reality and perception, drawing visitors into a state of heightened awareness where every movement is magnified and every sound carries significance. The cries from the trees are intermittent, sometimes distant, sometimes seeming to come from just above the head. Sometimes seeming to come from just above the head. Sometimes seeming to come from just above the head, sometimes seeming to synchronize with their own steps, fading the instant they pause. Fading the instant they pause. The sensation is more than auditory, it feels deliberate, as if the park itself orchestrates the timing to create an invisible rhythm that commands attention. The sensation is more than auditory, it feels deliberate, as if the park itself orchestrates the timing to create an invisible rhythm that commands attention. Along the shore, the swan statues take on an ethereal quality under the moonlight. Their polished surfaces catch the glow, giving the impression of eyes that are alive, following the movements of anyone who approaches. At times, they seem to glide slowly across the water, though the lake remains perfectly still. Observers feel a pull toward them, a quiet insistence that draws attention and curiosity, yet instinctively one hesitates, aware that the park does not fully welcome intrusion after dark. The air over Silver Lake Park carries a subtle chill that deepens the sense of isolation. Even on warmer nights, a cool breeze brushes against the skin, moving in patterns that suggest unseen passage. The combination of floating statues, distant cries, and shifting shadows creates an environment where perception and reality blur. Time seems to stretch, with minutes passing in odd rhythms, leaving a disorientation that lingers long after leaving the paths. As the night grows deeper, the parka's presence intensifies. The water reflects fragmented images of trees and sky. And shadows along the trails grow more pronounced. Every movement, every glance, feels observed. Travelers report sudden stillness in the air. A pause that falls over the lake and forest. As though the park itself holds its breath, awaiting the next motion. The cries from the trees ebb and flow. Sometimes merging with the wind. Sometimes sharp and distinct, leaving an impression of a place that remembers every visitor and responds in subtle, deliberate ways. By the time dawn approaches, Silver Lake Park returns to its quiet normalcy. The swan statues rest firmly on the water. And the cries fade into memory. Leaving only the natural sounds of water lapping and birds beginning their morning chorus. Yet those who have walked the paths at night carry the lingering sense of presence. A quiet awareness that the park is more than it seems. A space where observation, movement, and subtle anomaly combine. To create an experience that stays long after the visit ends. Silver Lake Park endures as a place of duality. It is both tranquil and alive, welcoming yet unsettling. The lake, the trees, and the statues together form an environment that challenges perception and instills curiosity. Travelers leave with memories of floating swans, whispers from the trees, and the persistent feeling of invisible eyes tracking their steps, a reminder that some spaces hold stories that unfold only under the cover of darkness. Ravenwood Park lies on the outskirts of a quiet town, surrounded by dense forests that. Its winding paths are lined with Gothic statues of crows, carved in black stone, their eyes seeming to glint with a strange, knowing awareness, creating an atmosphere of. The statues are scattered among the trees, perched on low walls, and staring from the tops of pillars, creating an atmosphere of watchful anticipation. Visitors often remark on the statue's unsettling presence. In the moments when attention drifts, they appear to shift slightly, their positions altered from the last glance. Some swear that the crows perch on places they were never placed, watching silently from higher branches or along shadowed pathways. The effect is subtle, yet undeniable, creating a sense that the park itself is alive and observing each visitor with intent. As footsteps echo along the gravel paths, whispers rise from the treetops. The sound is soft at first, like wind brushing through leaves, but soon it forms patterns that resemble words. Urgent warnings carried on the air. Travelers report feeling a sudden pull, as if the park is urging them to leave. Though curiosity or fascination keeps them moving forward. The whispers never take form in full clarity. But they are persistent. An invisible presence threading through the branches and shadows. Shadows in Ravenwood Park are never stationary. Between the trees, where sunlight struggles to penetrate, pale faces sometimes emerge. Observers catch fleeting glimpses of these figures, watching from the darkness before vanishing when looked at directly. They seem neither fully human nor entirely spectral, their features blending with the shadows, leaving an impression of something that is aware but beyond comprehension. The winding paths themselves feel alive. Areas that appeared open moments before can seem narrowed, overgrown with brambles or obscured by mist that rolls in unexpectedly. Travelers describe a disorienting sensation, as if the layout of the park shifts subtly to guide movement or obscure exits. At times, there are steps that trail behind or move ahead, moving independently of the visitor's pace. Areas that appeared open moments before can seem narrowed, overgrown with brambles or obscured by mist that rolls in unexpectedly. The crows remain central to the park's eerie atmosphere. In motionless stillness, they appear to track visitors with an intelligence that cannot be explained. Some visitors report hearing flapping wings when no birds are visible, a sound that rises and falls with the rhythm of their own heartbeats. Even when leaving the paths and stepping into open clearings, the feeling of being observed persists, as if the eyes of the park extend far beyond the stone forms themselves. Nightfall intensifies the sensations. The trees become towering silhouettes. The shadows lengthening into shapes that seem almost animate. Whispers grow more insistent, and the pale faces are more frequently glimpsed. The park seems to breathe, exhaling cold air that brushes against the skin, carrying the faint scent of damp earth and decayed leaves. Some visitors describe encounters that cannot be attributed to imagination alone. A sudden tug on a sleeve. A fleeting reflection in the dark water of a small pond. Or a movement in the corner of the eye that disappears when directly faced. Each experience reinforces the feeling that the park is alive, sentient, and aware of the living intruding upon its space. Despite the unease, Ravenwood Park draws people back. Its combination of natural beauty, Gothic architecture, and inexplicable phenomena creates a compelling allure. The stories of whispered warnings, shifting crows, and ghostly faces spread, enticing those who seek to witness the unknown. Some arrive in daylight and depart in darkness, carrying memories of sensations that linger long after the park has faded from sight. The park's history adds to its mystery. Records speak of the land's past, of families who once lived near the grove. Of events long forgotten, whispered in fragments that hint at sorrow, misfortune, and lives abruptly ended. The crows themselves may be symbols or sentinels, watching over secrets that have resisted the passage of time. Each visitor becomes part of this ongoing story, a witness to the quiet, almost imperceptible ways in which Ravenwood Park asserts its presence. Walking through the park is an exercise in awareness. Every sound, shadow, and movement carries significance, even when it cannot be fully understood. The path twists and turns, the statues shift subtly. And the whispers echo through the branches, threading together an experience that is at once unsettling and mesmerizing. For those who linger after the sun sets. The combination of darkness, whispers and shifting figures creates a cinematic landscape of suspense and unease. By the time visitors find the exit, they carry with them a sense of having traversed a space that exists slightly outside ordinary reality. The stone crows, the whispered warnings, and the pale faces, leaving lasting impressions on memory, ensuring that the park continues to influence thoughts and dreams long after departure. Ravenwood Park is a study in the intersection of beauty and unease, a place where nature, architecture, and the supernatural combine to create an unforgettable experience. Each visit is unique, shaped by perception and presence, with every twist of the path and every glance at the statues offering the possibility of discovery or discomfort. The allure of the park is undeniable. It is a place of observation, of whispers, and of subtle, unexplained movements. Travelers leave with an understanding that they have walked among the unknown, that the crows watch still, and that the pale faces linger in the shadows. Ravenwood Park is alive in memory, an enduring testament to the mysterious and the unseen, where curiosity and caution meet under the watchful eyes of countless silent sentinels. Ironwood Park stretches across a quiet, tree-lined section of the town. Its paths winding between clusters of ancient oaks and iron-wrought sculptures. By day, the park is a serene space of shadows and sunlight, where visitors stroll leisurely and children play among the trees. Yet as evening descends, the park takes on an atmosphere that is both beautiful and unsettling. A place where ordinary perception gives way to subtle disturbances that hint at something beyond the visible. The iron statues are the most striking feature of the park. Crafted with meticulous attention to detail, they depict animals, abstract forms, and human figures frozen in poses of elegance and motion. In the glow of the moon, the metal glimmers unnaturally, reflecting light in ways that seem to defy physics. Travelers report an eerie sensation that the statues are watching, not with eyes, but with intent, each subtle glint of the metal suggesting life where there should be none. Visitors often describe the most unnerving experience as observing the statues change. Limbs may subtly shift, a head may turn slightly, a posture may alter ever so faintly when no one is looking directly. Those who glance away for a moment often find that when they look back, the figures are no longer exactly as they remembered. It is a slow, deliberate change that breeds unease and curiosity in equal measure. Paths within the park take on a different character at night. The air grows cooler, carrying a faint, almost metallic scent that mingles with the earthy aroma of leaves and soil. Walkers report sudden icy drafts that seem to pass directly through them, and the sensation of footsteps following them along empty pathways. The sounds are faint, echoing just behind or beside, yet when one turns, the space is empty. The park seems to respond to presence, filling the silence with subtle signals that something unseen accompanies each visitor. Shadows are another source of unease. The moon casts long, distorted silhouettes of trees, statues, and pathways, but sometimes these shadows move independently. A statue may cast a shadow that twists slightly out of alignment with its form, stretching or bending in ways that defy the moonlight. Observers feel the uncanny presence of something manipulating these shapes, as if the ground itself has awareness and desires to communicate. The experience of being in Ironwood Park is immersive and persistent. Visitors often describe a sensation of being drawn along the paths, as if the park itself guides their steps. Benches, clearings, and sculptures seem to call attention in subtle ways, drawing focus to corners or angles that would otherwise go unnoticed. The awareness that one is being observed and subtly guided heightens tension and curiosity, creating a quiet, almost hypnotic engagement with the surroundings. Trees along the pathways contribute to the park's mysterious character. Their branches reach and sway in the night breeze, creating patterns of light and shadow that appear deliberate. Leaves rustle with an intensity that seems more purposeful than the wind alone could create. Combined with the moving statues and shifting shadows, the effect is a landscape alive with subtle, unexplainable motion. Some visitors notice the sounds of footsteps that do not match their own pace. They quicken their steps or pause, and the echoes either match their new rhythm or continue independently, as though belonging to unseen presences walking alongside. The combination of these auditory anomalies with the visual shifts of statues and shadows generates an immersive tension that is difficult to shake, leaving a lasting impression long after leaving the park. Ironwood Park's experience is heightened near clusters of the more intricate statues. Figures depicting human forms are particularly unnerving. Limbs may extend at angles that are slightly unnatural, heads may tilt with a faint suggestion of awareness, and postures may shift over time. Observers note that these changes feel deliberate, almost as if the statues are communicating without words, offering subtle signals of presence and attention. The atmosphere in the park grows more intense as the night deepens. The moonlight enhances reflections off the iron surfaces. Shadows grow longer and more distorted. The subtle drafts carry whispers of sound. Travelers report that lingering too long can lead to a sense of disorientation, as if the park has altered the space itself, guiding them through areas that appear familiar yet slightly changed. Ironwood Park is a place where perception is continually tested. Every glimmer of metal, every twisting shadow, and every unseen draft creates a layered experience that blends beauty with unease. The park's quiet power lingers in memory, a reminder that some places hold mysteries that remain even when the sun rises and the ordinary world returns. Those who leave Ironwood Park carry the memory of an environment that is alive in ways impossible to quantify. The shifting statues, independent shadows, and unseen presences form a continuous narrative that engages all senses. Visitors leave with an acute awareness of subtle motion, an appreciation of delicate craft, and an enduring curiosity about what unseen forces may animate the park when darkness falls. Ironwood Park stands as a testament to the interplay between art, environment, and mystery. It is a place where beauty conceals secrets, where each step may reveal something unexpected, and where the ordinary transforms into the extraordinary through subtle, persistent phenomena. The experience is unforgettable, a journey into a space that is at once inviting and unsettling, familiar and unknowable. Frostfield Park stretches across a quiet part of the city, its pathways winding between frost-covered trees and sculptures that gleam like crystal in the early morning light. The park is known for its angel statues, each carved with intricate detail, frozen in poses of serene contemplation. During the day, they seem still and peaceful, yet as dawn breaks and the frost clings to their surfaces, an almost otherworldly glow illuminates their forms, casting long, delicate shadows across the frozen ground. Visitors often describe a sensation of being watched, though the park appears empty. Travelers report seeing the angel statues turn their heads ever so slightly toward those approaching. A subtle movement that is easy to dismiss but impossible to ignore once noticed. It is a quiet, unnerving phenomenon. As if the figures themselves are aware of each step along the icy pathways. The air is crisp and still, carrying the faint scent of winter and frost-laden earth. Some who walk the trails report fleeting touches along their arms, cold and intangible, as if invisible hands have brushed against them. The sensation comes and goes, leaving behind a shiver that lingers long after the moment passes. There is no visible source, yet the feeling is undeniable, a silent reminder that Frostfield Park holds more than just statues and trees. Whispers drift along the pathways, soft and elusive. Names are spoken, though they are unfamiliar and seem to belong to another time. The voices are carried by the wind, blending with the subtle creak of frost-laden branches and the faint crunch of footsteps on the frozen ground. At times, the sound appears to come from directly behind, only to vanish when one turns to investigate. The effect is disorienting, creating a sense that the park itself remembers those who once walked its paths long ago. The statues themselves vary in expression and form. Some angels extend hands in gestures of guidance or comfort, while others appear contemplative. Gazing downward at unseen visitors. As the frost catches the morning light, the intricate carvings seem to come alive, shadows moving in a way that distorts perception. Limbs and wings appear to shift subtly, and expressions seem to change, offering fleeting glimpses of emotion that vanish when observed too closely. The frozen paths of Frostfield Park wind between clusters of trees and open clearings. Each area possessing its own unique atmosphere. The frost thickens, and the statues seem to cluster closer together. Their eyes appearing more focused, as if watching those who pass. The air grows colder in these spots, carrying a weight of silence that is both heavy and magnetic. Time feels different here, stretching longer in a way that makes a simple walk through the park feel like a journey into another realm. Some benches along the paths are adorned with smaller statues or carvings. Visitors who pause here often feel the strongest sense of presence. Invisible hands press lightly against shoulders or backs, encouraging movement or urging retreat. Shadows of trees and figures cast along the frost-covered ground seem to twist and elongate, creating shapes that do not align with reality, bending perception and inviting speculation about what is natural and what is not. The park changes as the sun climbs higher, though its mysteries persist even in daylight. Frost begins to melt, revealing the fine details of the carvings and the park's careful design. Yet even as the frost recedes, some visitors feel a lingering energy. A quiet reminder that Frostfield Park is more than its visible features. The angels, shadows, and whispers remain in memory, leaving an impression of a place where the ordinary and the extraordinary exist side by side. At dusk, the atmosphere shifts again. The cold deepens, and shadows lengthen across the pathways. The angel statues appear taller, their forms more imposing, and the frost returns in pockets as the temperature drops. Travelers who walk at this hour describe a feeling of being followed, the faint sound of footsteps echoing behind them, yet no one is visible. Whispers continue to weave through the air, growing clearer in the stillness, sometimes sounding like urgent warnings or the faint echo of long-forgotten conversations. Frostfield Park is a place where memory and perception intertwine. It is a space that invites exploration, yet demands caution. Every path, statue, and clearing carries its own story, hidden in the frost, the wind, and the shadows. Visitors leave with a heightened awareness, sensing that the park is alive in its own quiet way, holding fragments of the past and watching over all who pass through. As night falls, Frostfield Park becomes a landscape of crystalline light and deep shadow. The frost catches the last rays of the sun, and the statues seem to glow softly in the dim light. Whispers echo faintly, shadows twist across the pathways. And the air holds a chill that cannot be explained. It is a place where the ordinary rules of perception are suspended. A realm where visitors are reminded that some places, no matter how serene, carry a presence beyond the physical. Lingering quietly in memory long after the final step along the frozen trails. Crescent Hill Park stretches over rolling fields, its open spaces dotted with statues of children frozen in mid-play. By day, the park is serene, a quiet place where families stroll and the sunlight glints off the smooth surfaces of stone and metal. Yet as the sun dips below the horizon, the park transforms, and the familiar shapes take on an eerie quality that unsettles even the most composed visitor. The statues appear to move when no one is watching. Observers recount returning after dark to find the figures closer than they had been earlier. Sometimes arranged as if engaged in secret games or silently observing the paths. The subtle shift is enough to unsettle the mind, a reminder that the park holds more than the ordinary. The air feels heavier, filled with a quiet tension that seems to press against the skin and quicken the pulse. Laughter echoes across the open fields at night, soft and childlike, yet carrying an edge that chills the blood. The park feels abandoned, yet the sound persists, leaving a lingering sense of presence. Shadows stretch unnaturally beneath the trees, elongated forms that seem to reach and coil around the trunks as if aware of intruders. These shadows move independently of the moon and streetlights, forming angles and shapes that defy logic. Every step across the gravel pathways brings a sense of anticipation, as if the park itself is responding to movement, adjusting and shifting in ways that are subtle yet unmistakable. The childlike statues, so innocent in daylight, become unsettling sentinels at night. Their faces, smooth and expressionless, seem to watch each visitor, following their movement with an intensity that is difficult to describe. Even the smallest details of the tilt of a head, the placement of a handa appear altered, giving the impression of deliberate adjustment, as if the figures are aware of every observer and subtly reacting. As visitors wander deeper into Crescent Hill, the sounds of the park amplify. Footsteps crunch on pathways, yet often no one else is present. The wind carries hints of whispering voices, low murmurs that seem to flow from the trees themselves. These sounds are not loud, but they create a psychological tension, heightening awareness of every movement, every shift in the shadows. The park becomes a maze of perception, a place where the mind questions what is real and what is imagined. Paths wind between trees and open fields, and the shadows under branches twist and stretch as though alive. Even the statues seem to reposition themselves subtly, a step closer to those who linger too long. The combination of sound, movement, and visual distortion cultivates an atmosphere that is at once fascinating and unnerving. The park's layout contributes to the disorientation. Long stretches of grass are broken by clusters of statues and tall trees, creating isolated pockets of darkness, where perception is unreliable. Glimpses of figures in the corner of the eye vanish instantly, when turned toward, reinforcing the sense that the park is actively observing and reacting to every presence. The landscape seems to hold memory, responding to each step, each hesitation, with subtle cues that are impossible to predict. Even when remaining still, the visitor cannot escape the sensation of movement and attention. Laughter drifts in from unexpected directions, shadows bend unnaturally, and statues shift imperceptibly, keeping the observer in a state of heightened awareness. The park exerts a quiet influence, an invisible presence that monitors and shapes the experience without overt action, creating a tension that grows with every passing moment. As dawn approaches, the park gradually returns to its normal state. Shadows shrink back beneath the trees, the statues resume their original positions, and the sounds fade into silence. The field appears calm, the rolling hills bathed in morning light. But those who have walked Crescent Hill at night carry a lingering sense of the park's presence. The subtle movements, the whispered laughter, and the watching statues remain etched in memory. An impression that the park is far more than a collection of trees and stone. Crescent Hill Park stands as a place of contrast, serene by day and subtly active by night. Its statues, pathways, and shadows combine to create an environment where perception is challenged and the ordinary becomes extraordinary. Where perception is challenged and the ordinary becomes extraordinary. Visitors leave with the memory of shifting figures, chilling laughter, and the sense of eyes following each step. A reminder that some spaces hold mysteries that reveal themselves only under the cover of darkness. Elmshade Park stretches quietly under a canopy of towering elm trees, their branches intertwining to form a natural cathedral that filters the sunlight into fragmented patterns on the ground. Stone benches, worn smooth by years of visitors, line the winding paths, inviting contemplation yet holding an unspoken sense of foreboding. The park feels alive in a way that is both serene and unsettling, a place where the ordinary and the inexplicable seem to coexist. Travelers who wander through Elmshade often report subtle, disconcerting phenomena. Statues that appear solid and unmoving when first observed sometimes shift slightly when attention is diverted. A head tilts, a hand moves closer to the edge of a bench, or a figure seems to lean forward ever so subtly. These adjustments are never dramatic, but enough to create a sense that the park watches, responding quietly to those who traverse its paths. Shadowy figures are also reported, gliding along the edges of the paths. At times, they appear alongside the statues, walking in silent tandem as if participating in some unknown ritual. When confronted directly, these figures vanish, leaving only the hint of movement or a fleeting distortion in the corner of the eye. Visitors often describe a feeling of being accompanied without understanding by what or whom, a constant awareness of presence lingering just beyond full perception. The air in Elmshade Park is often cool, even on warm days. Breezes drift through the trees carrying sounds that cannot be easily explained. Whispering voices float on the air, seeming to call out names or murmur fragments of sentences, then fading as quickly as they appear. The effect is disorienting, drawing travelers deeper into the park, creating a mixture of curiosity and unease that is difficult to resist. Even the layout of the park contributes to its mysterious aura. Paths twist and loop back unexpectedly, and areas that seemed open moments before can become densely overgrown or shadowed, altering perception and adding a sense of unpredictability. Light and shadow play across the landscape in strange patterns, highlighting familiar forms one moment and transforming them into something almost otherworldly the next. Some visitors recount moments of time seeming hours can feel like minutes as they explore the winding paths. Or brief intervals can feel drawn out, heightening every sensation of observation and presence. An experience in ways that leave a lasting impression long after leaving. The park seems to influence perception, subtly guiding attention and experience in ways that leave a lasting impression long after leaving. Stone benches, particularly those near the older elm groves, are frequent points of unusual activity. Travelers report feeling the sensation of being watched while seated. And some describe faint movements along the surfaces or a sudden, unexplained chill. Others have seen shadows approach the benches and pause, lingering just out of reach before melting back into the darkness. The combination of tangible stone and ephemeral presence creates an environment where the physical and the spectral intersect in quiet, haunting ways. The statues themselves are central to the park's enigmatic character. Their craftsmanship is exquisite, capturing details that convey lifelike emotion. Eyes seem to follow visitors along paths, and gestures suggest readiness to interact, yet they remain impossibly still until attention wanes. These statues are not merely decorations, they act as focal points for the park's subtle phenomena, bridging the seen and the unseen, the ordinary and the mysterious. Nightfall transforms Elmshade Park further. Shadows deepen, and the wind carries a cooler, sharper chill. The whispering voices intensify, more urgent yet still indecipherable, threading through the branches and over the pathways. Figures appear more frequently, moving along the paths or pausing at the edges of vision. Light from distant street lamps or the moon casts long, distorted shadows that enhance the park's spectral atmosphere, creating a sense that every step is observed. Even during daylight, the park maintains its unsettling presence. Sunlight filtering through the elm canopy can create optical illusions, bending familiar shapes into strange, almost animate forms. A breeze may shift leaves or dust, suggesting movement where there is none. Every sound, whether a branch snapping or a faint rustle, is amplified in perception, contributing to an immersive experience that blends natural beauty with subtle menace. Visitors often describe a mixture of awe and apprehension. Elmshade Park offers serene landscapes, quiet corners, and moments of reflection. Yet these are interwoven with experiences that suggest another layer of reality. The subtle movements, whispered voices, and shadowed figures combine to leave a lasting impression, compelling travelers to return or at least recount their experiences to others. Over time, the park's reputation has grown. Stories of fleeting figures, moving statues, and disembodied whispers spread quietly, drawing those intrigued by the unexplained. Each visitor contributes to the ongoing narrative, a collection of perceptions and experiences that add to Elmshade's enigmatic presence. The park is not merely a location but a living, breathing entity in memory, a place where the boundaries of the ordinary blur with the spectral and the unknown. For those who linger among the elms and stone benches, every path, shadow, and whisper is an invitation to witness the unseen, to sense the park's quiet awareness, and to confront the unknown in ways that are both beautiful and unsettling. The experience lingers. An impression of being watched, accompanied, and observed. A memory that extends far beyond the park's physical borders. Elmshade Park remains a place where natural beauty and quiet unease coexist. A testament to the mysterious and the subtle power of perception. Those who enter are forever touched by its presence, carrying with them a sense of the uncanny, and a reminder that some places retain secrets that watch silently, waiting for those who venture too close. Maple Hollow Park stretches across a quiet section of the town, its pathways winding between clusters of tall maple trees whose branches form a canopy overhead. By day, the park is a place of tranquility, where sunlight dances across the leaves and children's laughter echoes faintly from distant playgrounds. Yet as dusk falls, the atmosphere shifts subtly, and the park takes on a presence that feels both alive and unseen. At the center of the park stands an ornate fountain, its stone basin adorned with carved animal figures. Visitors often find themselves drawn to the fountain, captivated by the craftsmanship and the quiet trickle of water during the day. But as night falls, reports emerge of something unusual. The animals, it is said, shift positions after dark, as though the fountain itself is aware of those who wander too close. A rabbit that once faced the east may suddenly face west. A bird may tilt its head in a different direction, as if observing a different part of the park. Walkers passing the fountain have described a sensation of unseen touch. Fingers seem to graze their arms lightly, an icy or fleeting contact that disappears before it can be traced. It is subtle enough to provoke doubt, yet consistent across numerous accounts. Some feel this presence as a gentle guiding force, while others are unnerved by the sensation of being followed without seeing anyone. The air around the fountain carries a hushed energy, a quiet hum of anticipation that is impossible to locate but impossible to ignore. Shadows play a significant role in the park's haunting character. Tree branches cast moving patterns, and the carved figures of the fountain appear to project shadows that are darker and more deliberate than the natural light allows. Visitors report that these shadows linger long after they have left the area, as if the park itself remembers their presence. The feeling of being watched, even when alone, is an inescapable element of the nighttime experience. Paths surrounding the fountain are lined with aged benches and low stone walls. Under the pale glow of streetlights, these features take on an unfamiliar character. The benches seem to invite attention, drawing passers-by closer, while the walls offer subtle changes in perspective that suggest depth where none exists. Observers have noted that subtle shifts occur when they are not looking directly, reinforcing the sense that the park is alive in ways not immediately visible. Maple Hollow Park is especially atmospheric after rain. The damp earth and wet leaves create reflections in puddles along the paths, some of which appear to shimmer with movement even when the water is still. Combined with the shifting animal figures and lingering shadows, this effect can be disorienting. Visitors often report a heightened sense of alertness, eyes scanning the surroundings for movement or sound that cannot be accounted for. Sounds in the park contribute to its mysterious ambience. The trickle of the fountain, the rustle of leaves, and the distant echo of footsteps blend together in a subtle, continuous soundtrack. Sometimes, faint whispers are reported, unintelligible but persistent, as if the park itself is communicating through sound. These whispers often coincide with moments when shadows appear particularly vivid, reinforcing the connection between sensory perception and the unseen forces that seem to inhabit the space. Those who linger near the fountain at night frequently describe a sensation of guidance, as if invisible hands or eyes are directing attention. Walkers may find themselves drawn to a specific path, a particular bench, or a cluster of trees. The combination of visual anomalies, tactile sensations, and auditory whispers creates a fully immersive environment that engages both curiosity and caution. Maple Hollow Park offers a unique blend of artistry, nature, and subtle supernatural phenomena. The carved animals, moving shadows, and fleeting touches encourage observation, reflection, and engagement with the environment in a way that feels both intimate and mysterious. Visitors leave with a lingering impression, an acute awareness of the park's character, and the sense that some places hold secrets that are revealed only to those who are attentive and open to the experience. The fountain, in particular, stands as a focal point for the park's enigmatic qualities. Its carved figures, once inert and static, become participants in the unfolding story of the night. Each subtle shift, each shadow that stretches or lingers, enhances the feeling that the park is not merely a space to walk through, but a living presence, quietly interacting with those who enter. Even after leaving Maple Hollow Park, the sensations and observations remain vivid. Visitors recall the delicate brush of air or fingers, the quiet yet deliberate movements of the animal statues, and the shadows that defy simple explanation. These experiences blend into memory, creating a sense of fascination, wonder, and cautious respect for the park's enigmatic nature. Maple Hollow Park endures as a space where ordinary perception meets subtle anomaly. It is a place that rewards careful attention, where the interplay of light, shadow, sound, and form invites visitors to engage with a world that is at once familiar and unknowable. The park's mysteries continue to unfold for those willing to experience its quiet power and observe the details that might otherwise go unnoticed. In the end, Maple Hollow Park is more than a collection of paths, trees, and sculptures. It is a living narrative, a space that transforms in the absence of direct observation. And a site where the ordinary and the extraordinary converge. The fountain and its shifting animals. The lingering shadows. And the unseen touches. Create a lasting impression. A reminder that some places carry the weight of unseen stories waiting to be discovered by those who dare to wander after dark. Pine Ridge Park rests atop a gentle hill, surrounded by tall pines that sway softly in the wind. Statues line the perimeter, their forms carved with careful precision, each frozen in poses of contemplation or subtle movement. By day, they seem serene and silent, yet as shadows stretch across the hill, a sense of unease settles over the park, hinting at mysteries that linger just beyond perception. Travelers often report an unsettling sensation that the statues are not as still as they appear. When eyes are averted, some have noticed the figures seeming to shift, inching closer, subtly realigning themselves with the paths and benches. The movement is slight, almost imperceptible, yet the cumulative effect leaves a lingering awareness that the park is watching, its presence both patient and persistent. Soft whispers carry through the air, barely audible at first, but insistent enough to draw attention. They seem to originate from the direction of the statues, though the words are fragmented and difficult to decipher. Some hear urgent warnings, a caution to leave before nightfall, while others feel an inexplicable tug at their attention, as if the park itself seeks to communicate in the language of shadows and sound. Others feel an inexplicable tug at their attention, as if the park itself seeks to communicate in the language of shadows and sound. The shadows cast by the statues stretch unnaturally across the hill, twisting and bending with the shifting light. Faces sometimes appear within these shadows, fleeting impressions of eyes and mouths that vanish when confronted directly. Visitors describe a sensation of being observed, a weight pressing subtly upon their senses. And the uncanny feeling that the figures are aware of their every move, even when no one else is present. The paths of Pine Ridge Park wind through clusters of trees and open clearings, each area offering a distinct atmosphere. In the quiet groves, the whispers grow more defined, carrying the faint echo of names long forgotten. Here, the air seems heavier, charged with anticipation, and a chill often drifts through the branches, brushing against the skin without warning. Even in the warmth of daylight, the park retains an undercurrent of tension, an invisible energy that draws the mind toward unease. Benches scattered along the walkways invite pauses, yet moments spent sitting often amplify the sense of presence. The statues, when observed from these vantage points, seem to shift ever so slightly, repositioning themselves as if to watch more closely. Travelers who linger too long report sudden gusts of wind, faint touches along their arms, and the impression of being gently guided toward the exit. It is subtle, disorienting, and entirely beyond explanation, leaving a trace of uncertainty long after departure. As evening approaches, the park transforms further. The fading light accentuates the carved features of the statues, casting long, distorted shadows that creep across the hill and merge with the darkness of the surrounding trees. The whispers grow sharper, in contrast to the quiet, mingling with the sound of rustling needles and the distant call of an owl. The park feels alive, responsive to those who enter. A space where time slows, and the boundary between the natural and the supernatural blurs. The perimeter of the park holds a particular fascination. Statues here are arranged in a way that frames the horizon, their gazes extending outward as though monitoring more than the hill itself. Visitors who walk along this edge sometimes glimpse movement in the spaces between trees, shadows that take the form of fleeting faces or figures that vanish when approached. These glimpses leave an indelible mark, an impression that Pine Ridge Park harbors secrets beyond human understanding. Nightfall deepens the atmosphere. The wind carries whispers that now seem to echo from every angle, shifting with the trees and the shadows. Some who remain too long report a growing sense of urgency, an invisible force nudging them to depart. Others feel a presence at their side, patient and observing, a reminder that the park does not release its visitors without acknowledgement. The park does not release its visitors without acknowledgement. Pine Ridge Park is more than a simple hilltop retreat. It is a place of tension and curiosity, where the ordinary merges with the inexplicable. Each path, statue, and shadow contributes to an environment that engages the senses fully, commanding attention and provoking wonder. Visitors leave with a heightened awareness, sensing that the park retains a memory of all who have passed through, watching over them long after footsteps fade from the frost-dusted ground. Even in silence, the park communicates. It whispers, it shifts, it watches. The hilltop remains unchanged to the casual observer, yet to those attuned to its subtleties, Pine Ridge Park is alive with a quiet, persistent energy. Statues inch closer, shadows twist, and voices linger in the air, creating a space where every step is accompanied by awareness, and every glance holds the possibility of something unseen observing. In return, by the time the last light fades, Pine Ridge Park stands as a testament to the mysterious and the uncanny. It is a place where travelers sense the intangible, where the ordinary rules of perception are gently subverted, and where the boundary between reality and the inexplicable is as thin as the evening mist drifting along the paths. Visitors depart with memories of subtle movements, soft whispers, and shadows that will remain with them, a lasting impression of a park that watches, waits, and quietly reminds all who enter that they are not truly alone. Silverwood Park stretches across acres of rolling land, its pathways lined with towering iron and stone sculptures. During the day, the park appears peaceful, a place where visitors stroll among the art and enjoy the sunlight reflecting off the metal surfaces. Yet as dusk falls, the atmosphere changes subtly, and the familiar shapes take on an intensity that unsettles even the most composed observer. The sculptures themselves are remarkable, crafted with intricate detail. Yet there is something disquieting about them. Many visitors report a sensation of being watched, a feeling that intensifies as shadows lengthen and the light fades. The eyes of the figures, though made of stone and iron, seem to track every movement, following visitors as they wander the winding paths. The effect is gradual at first, almost imperceptible, but grows steadily, a persistent reminder that the park is alive in ways beyond understanding. Shadows in Silverwood Park do not always obey the natural laws of light. Shapes detach from their sources, gliding along the ground or climbing the sides of sculptures with impossible fluidity. Observers often see these shadows in their peripheral vision, disappearing instantly when looked at directly, leaving only the normal outlines of trees, statues, and pathways. This phenomenon creates an uneasy tension, a sense that reality itself is mutable and that the park responds to the presence of every visitor. The wind adds another layer to the park's unsettling aura. It sweeps across the fields, carrying faint moans and soft whispers that cannot be understood. The sounds rise and fall unpredictably, drifting from one area to another, echoing among the sculptures and through the tree lines. They are quiet enough to be missed by casual observers, yet insistent enough to disturb those attuned to the subtle atmosphere of Silverwood Park. The combination of sound, movement, and observation creates a complex environment that engages the senses and unsettles the mind. Visitors report moments when the sculptures appear to shift slightly, a change too subtle to detect at first glance but undeniable when compared over time. A hand might tilt, a head angle differently, a figure seems to lean toward a pathway. These adjustments are never abrupt, always measured and deliberate, giving the impression that the park is aware of each step, each pause, and each glance. The experience is immersive, blending visual, auditory, and psychological elements into a single, continuous encounter. A single, continuous encounter. Paths wind between clusters of sculptures, tall trees, and open fields, creating pockets of darkness. Where perception becomes unreliable, shadows move independently. And the whispers carry clearly enough to suggest presence, yet there is never a visible source. Some visitors feel sudden chills. Subtle pressures like a hand brushing the shoulder, gone before acknowledgement. The park plays with perception, blurring the line between reality and imagination, leaving an indelible impression that lingers long after leaving the final shot. Even when remaining still, one cannot escape the sense of observation. Statues line the paths and fields, their eyes seemingly fixed on anyone who enters the park. The combination of visual tracking and auditory disturbance heightens awareness, causing the mind to overanalyze every movement and sound. Footsteps echo in unexpected directions, and the rustling of leaves carries patterns that suggest motion where there is none. This constant interplay of stimuli creates a tension that grows, yet is strangely compelling, drawing visitors deeper into the park even as the instinct to leave rises. At night, Silverwood Park transforms further. Moonlight casts elongated shadows, stretching the sculptures into distorted and unsettling forms. Figures that seemed inert during the day appear to lean toward pathways, their outlines flickering as if breathing with the wind. The whispers intensify, moving across distances in impossible ways, sometimes forming the impression of voices speaking directly to those who wander alone. Every step feels observed, measured, and noted, giving the visitor a sensation of walking within a living, responsive environment. Every step feels observed, measured, and noted, giving the visitor a sensation of walking within a living, responsive environment. By dawn, the park appears ordinary once more. Shadows return to their expected places. Sculptures are still and solid. And the wind carries only the natural sounds of the morning. Yet those who have experienced Silverwood Park at night carry the memory of shifting forms, following eyes, and the faint, unintelligible whispers. The park leaves an enduring impression. A reminder that the ordinary can conceal extraordinary mysteries when light fades and perception is heightened. Silverwood Park stands as a testament to the power of subtle, psychological phenomena. Its sculptures, shadows, and the whispers that ride the wind create a space where perception is challenged and the environment responds to presence. Visitors leave with an awareness of being watched, of sounds that cannot be explained, and of shadows that move with intent, a lingering sense that Silverwood Park holds secrets that reveal themselves only under the cover of darkness. Oakshade Park stretches across a quiet landscape where towering oaks cast long shadows over winding paths. At the heart of the park stands a weathered gazebo, its wooden beams worn smooth by years of exposure. Surrounding the structure are statues, their stone forms frozen in time, depicting figures and poses that seem serene by day but unnerving by night. Visitors often remark on the unusual stillness of the park, a silence that carries an almost tangible weight. Shadows lengthen and twist across the paths in unnatural ways, bending around corners and pooling in areas where light should not reach. The statues, seemingly inert during the day, appear closer to the gazebo when observed in the moonlight, as if drawn toward the center of some unseen force. Some travelers report sudden sensations, an icy hand brushing against a shoulder or the nape of the neck, a fleeting touch that vanishes before attention can fully focus. The feeling is never aggressive, but it leaves a shiver in its wake, a reminder that the park is alive in ways beyond ordinary perception. These experiences are often accompanied by the subtle movement of shadows, twisting and flowing across the paths, reacting to presence with deliberate, quiet intent. The gazebo itself becomes a focal point after dark. Its open framework allows the moonlight to filter through, casting elongated shapes onto the surrounding grass. Visitors have described the sensation of being observed while standing beneath its roof, the hair on the back of the neck rising. A chill that seems to emanate from the very air. The statues that encircle the structure appear to shift imperceptibly, edging closer as if drawn to the center, creating a circle of silent guardians whose purpose remains unknown. Paths leading to the gazebo wind through dense foliage, where the oak's thick canopy filters starlight into fragmented patterns on the ground. Each step can create an echo that carries unnaturally far, and the quiet rustle of leaves is amplified, sounding almost like whispers. Travelers describe these sounds as disorienting, a blending of natural and inexplicable noise that enhances the sense of otherworldliness permeating Oakshade Park. A sense of otherworldliness permeating Oakshade Park. Even during the day, the park retains an unsettling quality. Sunlight filtering through branches creates moving patterns on the paths. And statues seem to shift when viewed from different angles. What was once an empty stretch of grass may appear occupied when attention returns. A subtle distortion that blurs the line between perception and reality. Visitors often remark that the park seems to be subtly observing them, responding to presence in ways that cannot be measured or explained. The statues themselves are a source of both fascination and unease. Crafted with delicate precision, each stone figure conveys emotion through posture and expression. Yet there is a stillness within them that feels almost deliberate, a quiet tension that implies awareness. At night, in particular, these figures seem to adopt new significance, their silent gaze following intruders along the paths. Their forms appearing to lean closer with every passing moment. Oakshade Park's shadows enhance its enigmatic character. Branches sway in the wind, casting intricate, moving shapes across the paths. Travelers often report seeing forms that do not match the environment. Shapes that seem to detach from the natural scenery and move with an independent will. A corner of the path may appear clear, yet a shadow lingers there, shifting and coiling, eliciting a sensation of being watched or followed. Those who linger near the gazebo frequently describe a heightened sense of time distortion. Moments may stretch, an experience that leaves the mind acutely aware of every sensation. The cold brush of an unseen hand, the movement of statues, the twisting shadows, all seem synchronized with a rhythm beyond comprehension, creating an atmosphere that is both mesmerizing and deeply unsettling. Sounds in Oakshade Park are equally enigmatic. The gentle creak of wood underfoot, the rustling of leaves, and occasional distant calls of nocturnal birds combine into a symphony of subtle eeriness. Yet within this natural chorus, travelers detect anomalies. Footsteps that echo where no one walks, whispers that fade when approached, and the quiet movement of statues, leaving behind a sense that the park itself participates in some silent, unseen ritual. Despite its unsettling nature, Oakshade Park possesses a quiet, somber beauty. The interplay of light and shadow, the carefully maintained greenery, and the aged structures create a place that is both serene and charged with hidden energy. Visitors leave with memories of strange sensations, fleeting glimpses of movement, and the lingering impression that the park watches, waits, and interacts in ways that defy explanation. Visitors leave with memories of strange sensations, fleeting glimpses of movement, and the lingering impression that the park watches, waits, and interacts in ways that defy explanation. Even after leaving, travelers recount the subtle impressions of the park. The cold touch on a shoulder, the twisted shadows, and the statue's seemingly deliberate movements. Oakshade Park remains an enigmatic space, a location where the ordinary and the extraordinary intertwine, offering an experience that captivates, unnerves, and leaves a lasting mark on the memory of those who venture within its boundaries. For anyone walking the paths or approaching the gazebo, Oakshade Park is more than a park. It is a living tableau of observation, interaction, and subtle menace, where stone, shadow, and the unseen converge to create a haunting yet fascinating landscape. Those who enter are forever aware that they are being watched. Not by eyes in the ordinary sense, but by the silent, ever-present gaze of the park itself. The park's mysteries endure because it engages all who enter in a delicate dance of perception. Every footstep, every shift of shadow, and every subtle movement of stone figures contributes to the ongoing story of Oakshade Park. The experience is cumulative, layering unease and fascination with each visit, ensuring that the memory of the park remains alive long after the paths have been left behind. Oakshade Park is not merely a collection of paths, statues, and trees. The shifting statues, twisting shadows, and icy sensations form a narrative without words. A story told in quiet observation and fleeting movement. Visitors depart changed, aware of a place that is at once beautiful, serene, and profoundly, quietly alive. Ravencrest Park stretches across a quiet section of town, its paths winding beneath towering oaks and pines that cast long shadows over the grounds. By day, it is a serene refuge where sunlight filters through leaves and the sound of rustling branches mingles with the occasional call of a bird. Yet as night falls, the atmosphere transforms, and a subtle sense of unease descends across the park. Visitors stroll along its trails, pausing at benches and fountains, appreciating the sculptures that punctuate the landscape. The most striking features of Ravencrest Park are its statues of birds perched atop stone posts. Hawks, ravens, owls, and other creatures of the air are carved with precise detail, their wings poised mid-motion and heads turned as if tracking unseen prey. During daylight hours, the figures are admired for their craftsmanship, their presence lending a quiet majesty to the park. But as darkness approaches, accounts emerge of something more unsettling. Visitors claim that the birds shift their wings or tilt their heads when no one is watching, small movements that suggest life rather than stone. The effect is subtle, almost imperceptible at first, yet enough to unsettle those who notice. The park's auditory landscape adds to its mysterious character. Faint screeches echo across the grounds, though no birds can be seen in the trees. The sounds are intermittent, rising and falling with the wind, and they seem to come from multiple directions at once. Walkers report a sensation of being followed, the faint impression of movement behind them along empty trails. Footsteps that cannot be traced, whispers of air that brush past, and the occasional rustle of leaves combine to create an immersive experience that is both captivating and disquieting. Shadows play a vital role in Ravencrest Park's enigmatic nature. The trees cast elongated silhouettes across the paths, stretching and shifting as the moon rises. The bird statues themselves appear to project shadows that move independently, extending across the ground in ways that defy simple explanation. These shadows sometimes appear to guide or influence the path of visitors, drawing attention toward certain areas of the park or encouraging a cautious, deliberate pace. The combination of movement, sound, and shadow creates a sense that the park is alive in ways that are not immediately visible. Pathways through Ravencrest are lined with benches and low stone walls, each structure taking on a different character as night deepens. Benches seem to invite attention, encouraging visitors to pause and observe, while walls form subtle corridors that shift perception. Those who linger often report feeling watched, an awareness that is difficult to pinpoint yet impossible to ignore. The sensation of an unseen presence, something attentive and aware, becomes a persistent theme among accounts of nighttime visits. Ravencrest Park is particularly atmospheric in fog or mist. The moisture in the air softens edges and diffuses light from nearby lamps, creating reflections that shimmer and move with unusual fluidity. Sounds carry differently, footsteps echo oddly, and the faint screeches of birds take on an almost ethereal quality. In these conditions, the park's subtle influences become more pronounced, heightening both curiosity and apprehension. Visitors also describe tactile sensations within the park. A sudden brush of cold air, the lightest touch on a shoulder, or the faint vibration of stone underfoot creates the impression of an unseen force present. These moments are fleeting and delicate, yet they leave a lasting impact, reinforcing the sense that the park interacts with those who enter. Whether guiding, observing, or testing, this presence is integral to the nighttime experience. The interaction of visual, auditory, and tactile elements in Ravencrest Park creates an immersive environment. Shadows and statues, whispers and screeches, the subtle shifting of stone figures, and the sensation of being followed all combine into a cohesive, atmospheric experience. The park transforms after dark, becoming a place of subtle enchantment and unease, where ordinary perception is challenged and visitors must remain alert to details they might otherwise overlook. Even after leaving the park, the impressions remain vivid. Visitors recount the shifting birds, the moving shadows, the faint screeches, and the sensation of being accompanied by an unseen presence. These experiences linger, blending into memory and imagination, creating a sense of fascination and respectful caution. The park is remembered not just as a physical location, but as a space where ordinary and extraordinary converge, leaving a lasting impression on those who explore it after dark. Ravencrest Park endures as a site where art, nature, and subtle supernatural phenomena intersect. Its carved bird statues, moving shadows, mysterious sounds, and unseen presence form a layered narrative that rewards attention and awareness. Visitors discover a park that is simultaneously familiar and unknowable, its character revealed through observation, patience, and a willingness to embrace the enigmatic. Its character revealed through observation, patience, and a willingness to embrace the enigmatic. In the quiet hours, Ravencrest Park transforms from a place of leisure to a space of intrigue. The birds atop their stone posts, the shadows that stretch across the paths, the screeches that echo and vanish, and the sense of unseen companions all contribute to a park that feels alive in its own, secretive way. It is a location that challenges perception, engages the senses, and leaves an indelible mark on those who walk its trails after nightfall, inviting them to see beyond the ordinary and consider the subtle mysteries that linger in the spaces between observation and imagination. Frostglen Park rests quietly beneath a veil of mist that settles heavily over the grass and trees as night falls. The air is cool and still, carrying the faint scent of damp earth and pine, creating a landscape that seems suspended between reality and dream. Travelers often notice that the park transforms under this shroud, appearing both familiar and unsettling, as if time itself slows and the ordinary rules of the world no longer fully apply. Statues of children are scattered along the winding pathways, their expressions frozen in innocence and play. Yet those who linger long enough sense something subtle and unnerving. The statues shift ever so slightly, tilting their heads, repositioning hands, as if observing the living who wander past. These movements are imperceptible to casual eyes, but for those who notice, the park feels alive in a way that is impossible to define, a silent presence woven into the shadows. Cold drafts weave through the park without warning, brushing against the skin like invisible fingers. These sudden chills often accompany faint whispers, names carried through the night that seem to echo from no particular direction. Some visitors feel as though the wind itself is alive, attentive, guiding or warning them as they walk along the paths. The combination of frost, mist, and whispers imbues the park with an atmosphere that is both captivating and disquieting, drawing attention to every movement and sound. Shadows stretch across the grass in unusual ways. They move independently of their sources, creeping around the statues and trees, coiling along the ground as if in silent pursuit. These shifting forms elude direct observation, vanishing when approached, yet their presence is felt keenly. The movement of shadows interacts with the mist, creating shapes that appear solid one moment and dissolving the next, heightening the sense that Frostglen Park is a place where the boundary between reality and the unseen is fragile and permeable. The pathways themselves curve unpredictably, leading through clusters of trees and open spaces that catch the faint moonlight in silvery patterns. Walking along these trails, visitors report the sensation of being watched, though no living eyes are present. The park communicates through the subtle language of atmospheria, the tilt of a statuette's head, the whisper of a name, the sudden rush of cold air. Each element contributes to a growing awareness that the park is more than a collection of stone and trees, it is a space alive with memory and presence. Benches along the paths invite pause, yet sitting often intensifies the uncanny feeling. Observers notice shadows moving across the frost-covered ground, adjusting and bending as though following an invisible choreography. Whispers rise and fall, sometimes merging with the rustling of leaves or the distant sound of water. The park seems to hold a memory of those who have passed before, recalling names and shapes that have long faded from the human world, preserving them in quiet, spectral vigil. As night deepens, the mist thickens, obscuring familiar landmarks and creating an ever-shifting landscape. The statues of children appear closer than before, their subtle movements more pronounced in the dim light. Travelers describe a heightened sense of awareness, the feeling that every step and glance is noted by unseen observers. Shadows gather in corners, retreat when approached, and yet remain present in the periphery, reinforcing the sense that Frostglen Park operates by its own rules, independent of those who wander its paths. The atmosphere is further intensified by the interplay of frost and fog. Crystals of ice form on the edges of leaves and pathways, glinting faintly in the pale light. Each step along the trails echoes softly, a reminder of solitude amidst the watchful presence of statues and shadows. The park's silence is never absolute, punctuated by the faintest noises that suggest life where none should exist. It is a space that commands respect, inspiring awe and unease in equal measure. Visitors who remain into the late hours feel a gentle compulsion to move, an invisible guidance nudging them along the paths or toward the exits. Some describe glimpses of figures just beyond the fog, ephemeral and impossible to define, their presence suggested rather than seen. Whispers continue to drift across the frost-laden ground, calling names in a cadence that is almost melodic yet haunting. The effect is immersive, leaving an impression of a world that is layered and alive, just beyond the reach of ordinary perception. Frostglen Park is not merely a park but an experience of presence and perception. Every statue, every shadow, every drifting whisper contributes to an environment that is compelling, mysterious, and slightly unnerving. It is a place that engages the senses fully, commanding attention and encouraging visitors to become aware of subtleties they might normally overlook. The park is a living memory, a silent witness to countless passers-by, its influence lingering long after the frost and mist have vanished. Even as dawn approaches, the atmosphere of Frostglen Park does not immediately dissipate. The mist thins, the shadows shrink, and the whispers fade, yet the sense of awareness remains. Travelers leave carrying an impression of movement and voice that cannot be easily explained, a lingering reminder that the park is more than it appears. Frostglen Park watches, waits, and remembers, a quiet guardian of stories etched into stone, mist, and shadow, preserving the unseen in its silent, spectral embrace. The park's enchantment lies in subtlety. Each night, every shift of a statue, every whisper, every moving shadow creates an experience that blends curiosity with unease. Visitors are drawn in by the beauty of frost and mist, yet they leave with the sensation that they have glimpsed something beyond comprehension. Frostglen Park is a place of mystery, a living canvas, where shadows, whispers, and statues merge to tell stories that only the night can fully reveal, leaving an indelible mark on all who wander its paths. Willowshade Park stretches quietly across a gentle landscape, its pathways winding past clusters of trees and open lawns. At the heart of the park lies a small, still pond, its surface reflecting the sky and the statues that surround it. Among them are a collection of angel figures, carved in delicate detail, their wings arched and hands folded as if in silent vigil. During the day, the park appears serene, a place for reflection and quiet walks. Yet as the light fades, visitors begin to sense an atmosphere that is both beautiful and unsettling. The angels themselves seem ordinary at first glance, frozen in stone with expressions of calm and benevolence. Yet those who linger often notice subtle movements, small shifts that defy logic. Wings appear to flutter gently, catching faint glimmers of light, as if stirred by a breeze that does not exist. Visitors describe a sensation of being watched, an awareness that the statues are aware of every step, every pause. This observation is not fleeting, but persistent, creating an impression that the park is alive in ways beyond understanding. Even when the park is empty, the presence of the statues is palpable. Paths that seem familiar by day feel foreign and oppressive after dusk. Shadows stretch across the lawns, merging with the stone figures. And the pond reflects shapes that do not correspond to the natural environment. Some visitors swear that the eyes of the angels follow them, shifting with the angle of approach, observing silently without any movement of the head. The effect is subtle yet disquieting, a quiet insistence that the park holds secrets just beyond the grasp of comprehension. The soundscape of Willowshade Park contributes to its eerie charm. A soft whisper occasionally drifts across the water, carrying words that cannot be discerned yet chill the listener to the core. It rises and falls unpredictably, blending with the rustle of leaves and the gentle lap of water at the pond's edge. Those who linger too long report a sense of anticipation, as if the park itself is holding its breath, waiting for an unspoken signal. This combination of auditory and visual phenomena heightens awareness, drawing visitors into a state of alert observation where every sound and shadow is scrutinized. Paths wind between the angel statues, leading to secluded benches and shaded groves. In these quieter areas, the experience intensifies. Light filters through the trees in fractured patterns, casting moving shadows that seem to interact with the sculptures. Figures that appear to be still take on a sense of subtle motion, tilting or leaning imperceptibly. Some visitors feel a light brush along their skin, fleeting and intangible, leaving only a sense of presence behind. The park's design and natural features work together to create an environment where perception is heightened, and the ordinary transforms into something extraordinary. Nightfall brings the most profound changes. The pond reflects the pale light of the moon, turning its surface into a shifting mirror that seems to pulse with life. The angel statues become more prominent, their forms emerging from darkness with an almost sentient quality. Shadows lengthen and stretch, moving across the grass in patterns that defy logic. The whispering sound grows more insistent, moving across distances in impossible ways, and the feeling of being observed intensifies. Visitors report moments of vertigo, a sensation of time stretching or compressing, as if the park bends reality around them. Even in the quietest corners, the park exerts a subtle pressure. Steps echo unexpectedly, leaves rustle without wind. And the occasional ripple disturbs the surface of the pond, though no breeze is present. The atmosphere is immersive, engaging all senses simultaneously. Visitors cannot ignore the interplay between light, shadow, sound, and presence. And each moment spent in Willowshade Park deepens the sense of unease. Yet this unease is compelling, drawing visitors further into the park's depths even as instinct urges retreat. By dawn, the park appears tranquil once more. The pond is still, the angels frozen in their watchful poses. And the whispers dissolve into the morning air. Light transforms the environment into a familiar and welcoming landscape. Yet those who have walked the paths at night carry the memory of subtle movements. Shifting shadows and the soft, haunting whispers. These experiences linger, a quiet reminder that Willowshade Park holds mysteries that reveal themselves only when the world grows silent and the mind is open to the unseen. That Willowshade Park holds mysteries. Willowshade Park remains a place of paradox, a space where serenity and unease coexist in delicate balance. Its angel statues, their gentle fluttering wings, and the whispers across the water create an atmosphere that is immersive, psychological, and profoundly engaging. Visitors leave with a heightened awareness of their surroundings, a memory of being observed, and of subtle phenomena that challenge understanding. The park offers a quiet, enigmatic experience, reminding those who wander its paths that even in beauty, there can be wonder and apprehension intertwined. Elmcrest Park stretches across a quiet neighborhood, its winding paths lined with carefully carved stone figures. Each statue tells a story in still form, their features frozen in expressions of contemplation, joy, or solemnity. By day, the park is serene, bathed in sunlight filtering through leafy canopies. As dusk approaches, the atmosphere begins to shift subtly. Shadows lengthen across the paths, stretching from the trunks of towering trees and the bases of stone figures. The air grows cooler, carrying a slight tension that seems to wrap around anyone who enters. Travelers describe a feeling of being observed, an unshakable sensation that unseen eyes follow their every step. When night falls, the park transforms into a space of quiet mystery. Stone figures that once stood silently during the day appear to have moved, repositioned along the paths in ways that seem deliberate. Observers often notice a slight change in posture, the tilt of a head, or the orientation of a hand, enough to suggest awareness. The effect is subtle, almost imperceptible at first, but over time, it builds an unsettling sense of unease. Footsteps echo softly on the gravel paths, though no one else is in sight. Visitors report hearing these sounds following them, keeping pace despite attempts to quicken or slow their own movement. The source of the noise is never visible, leaving only the sound of careful, measured steps that seem to respond to every turn. This auditory presence amplifies the impression that the park itself is alive, a space where stone, shadow, and silence interact in ways that defy ordinary perception. Shadows under the trees deepen, moving independently of the branches and moonlight. Flicker at the edge of vision, vanishing when confronted directly. Some travelers describe glimpses of figures just beyond the periphery. Forms that are neither human nor fully spectral. Blending into the darkness yet asserting their presence. Forcing attention to linger on every subtle detail. The carved stone figures themselves are a source of fascination and apprehension. Each is sculpted with care, conveying emotion through delicate angles of the face and body. In the stillness of night, these emotions take on new weight. Smiles may appear more enigmatic, gazes more penetrating, and gestures more deliberate. The movement of the statues, combined with the shifting shadows and mysterious sounds, creates a layered environment where perception and reality are constantly tested. Paths winding through Elmcrest Park are lined with trees that arch overhead, forming natural tunnels of darkness. The leaves rustle with faint, unpredictable sounds, blending with the echoes of distant footsteps. Travelers often feel compelled to move carefully, attuned to every change in light and shadow. Each step carries the possibility of encountering another presence, whether it is a stone figure, a shifting shadow, or the subtle impression of being watched. Visitors report that the park seems to respond to their presence. Shadows elongate or twist as they approach certain paths. Stone figures appear to adjust their orientation as if tracking movement. Sounds amplify or fade in response to proximity, creating the sensation of a living environment that is aware and reactive. This dynamic interaction fosters a sense of both wonder and unease, drawing visitors deeper into the park while reminding them of the ever-present unknown. Even in the quietest moments, Elmcrest Park offers sensations that defy explanation. A cool brush against the skin, a whisper of air that carries no source, the soft creak of a figure shifting. All contribute to an immersive experience. Time seems to slow, each sound and movement magnified, encouraging a heightened state of awareness. Visitors often recount leaving with an acute memory of details they had never consciously registered, as if the park imprints itself upon the mind. The park's nocturnal character enhances its enigmatic allure. Moonlight filtering through the tree canopy casts intricate patterns on the paths, creating areas of light and shadow that seem alive. Statues take on different forms as the illumination shifts, and movements that were imperceptible by day become pronounced. These effects are compounded by the natural sounds of the environment, creating an atmosphere where the boundary between the ordinary and the extraordinary is indistinct. For those walking the paths, Elmcrest Park is both beautiful and unnerving. The interaction of light, shadow, and stone forms creates a continuously shifting landscape. Each step may reveal a subtle change in a statuette's pose. A new shadow where none existed. Or a sound that seems responsive to movement. This interplay ensures that no visit is ever the same. And each experience leaves a lasting impression on those who venture within. As the night deepens, the park's quiet intensity grows. Stone figures appear closer to pathways, shadows gather beneath trees. And the sensation of being followed intensifies. The park does not act aggressively, but it asserts its presence in ways that are impossible to ignore. Visitors leave with the sense that Elmcrest Park is more than a collection of paths and statues. It is an active participant in the experience, shaping perception and challenging understanding. Even after departing, travelers carry the subtle reminders of the park. A faint echo of footsteps in an empty room. A lingering image of a statue in an unusual position. Or the memory of shadows that twisted unnaturally across the path. Elmcrest Park leaves an imprint. A quiet haunting that persists in memory. Drawing those who have witnessed its mysteries back into contemplation and curiosity. The allure of Elmcrest Park lies in its combination of beauty, subtle menace, and enigmatic energy. Visitors engage in a dynamic experience where observation and perception intersect with the unknown. Stone figures, shifting shadows, and unexplainable sounds create a narrative without words. Leaving each person with a personal story of subtle awe and lingering unease. Elmcrest Park is a place that demands attention, patience, and awareness. Every path, every statue, and every shifting shadow contributes to a story that is ongoing and interactive. Those who enter are forever aware that the park is not merely a collection of objects and paths, but a living, reactive space, where perception, time, and memory intertwine to create a hauntingly unforgettable experience. Those who enter are forever aware that the park is not merely a collection of objects and paths, but a living, reactive space, where perception, time, and memory intertwine to create a hauntingly unforgettable experience. Silverbrook Park stretches across a quiet, open field bordered by dense trees. During the day, it is a peaceful place where sunlight falls in soft patches across the grass and the air carries the scent of earth and leaves. Scattered across the fields are statues of animals, each carved with lifelike detail. Deer stand as if listening, foxes crouch as if ready to pounce, and birds perch atop stone posts, their wings poised mid-motion. By daylight, the park is a place of beauty and calm, drawing families and walkers seeking tranquility among the sculptures. As evening approaches, the atmosphere begins to shift. Shadows stretch across the fields, and the statues take on a different presence. The statues take on a different presence. Visitors who remain as darkness falls report subtle changes in the animalsa positions. Visitors who remain as darkness falls report subtle changes in the animalsa positions. A deer that once faced the tree line might now look toward the path. A deer that once faced the tree line might now look toward the path. A fox seems to have crept closer to the edge of the field. A fox seems to have crept closer to the edge of the field. These movements are slight and easily missed, yet they are enough to create an unnerving sense that the park is watching, responding, or even guiding those who wander its paths. Yet they are enough to create an unnerving sense that the park is watching, responding, or even guiding those who wander its paths. The sounds of Silverbrook Park after dark enhance its mysterious character. Faint voices drift across the fields, sometimes indistinct. Sometimes carrying laughter that seems distant yet uncomfortably near. The laughter is soft, almost playful, yet tinged with a strange melancholy. Walkers report hearing whispers that rise and fall with the wind, echoing through the trees and across the open space. The source is never visible, leaving an impression that the park itself is alive with secrets. Visitors also describe physical sensations within the park. A cold breeze brushes past the neck. A sudden weight on a shoulder as though someone has walked close behind. Or a fleeting touch on an arm with no one present. These experiences are brief but startling, creating a heightened awareness of the surroundings. The combination of sound, movement, and tactile perception transforms the park from a peaceful landscape into a space of subtle tension and intrigue. The layout of Silverbrook Park contributes to the feeling of mystery. Open fields alternate with shaded groves, and winding paths guide visitors through both areas. The statues are strategically placed, some in clusters, others isolated. In the moonlight, shadows stretch and twist, merging with the shapes of the sculptures. The interplay of light and shadow gives the impression of movement even when nothing is actually shifting, yet many visitors swear they see figures change position when they glance away and look back again. Fog often drifts across the fields during colder months, softening the edges of trees and statues, and adding a spectral quality to the environment. Under these conditions, the statues seem almost alive, their carved eyes catching the faintest glimmers of light, their limbs frozen in poses that suggest readiness or curiosity. The whispers and laughter take on a more surreal quality, bouncing between trees and statues, making it difficult to locate their source. Footsteps sound differently on wet grass, carrying farther than expected, further reinforcing the impression that the park holds secrets waiting to be discovered. Visitors walking alone frequently report heightened sensations of being observed. A feeling of unseen eyes tracking each movement becomes more pronounced in isolated areas. The statues themselves seem to influence perception, drawing attention or creating illusions of movement. Some visitors find themselves pausing at a particular sculpture for no apparent reason, sensing an energy that draws them in. Others feel nudged, subtly directed to walk a certain way, as if the park has its own intentions. Silverbrook Park's nocturnal environment is further enriched by natural sounds that seem amplified in the quiet. Leaves rustle, branches creak, and water in small fountains or ponds nearby reflects moonlight in patterns that appear almost deliberate. These auditory cues, combined with the presence of moving shadows and shifting statues, create an immersive experience that engages all senses. It is a place where reality feels pliable and perception becomes a crucial part of the journey. Even after leaving the park, the impressions linger. Visitors recount the shifting statues, the fleeting touches, the distant laughter, and the whispers that seem to follow them beyond the gates. The park leaves a lasting memory, a blend of beauty and unease that continues to resonate. It is not merely a location to visit, but an experience that challenges awareness, inviting reflection on what is seen, what is felt, and what remains just beyond perception. Silverbrook Park endures as a space where art, nature, and subtle unseen influences converge. Its statues, sounds, shadows, and tactile experiences form a layered and atmospheric narrative. The park captivates those willing to explore it at night, revealing a world that exists in parallel to the familiar. Where ordinary perception is tested and the boundaries between the tangible and the enigmatic blur. In the quiet of the night, Silverbrook Park transforms. Whispers ride the breeze. And unseen presences make themselves known through fleeting touches and subtle guidance. It is a place that rewards attention and awareness. Inviting visitors to experience a park that is simultaneously serene and mysterious. Those who venture here leave with an enduring impression. A sense that the park is more than a collection of stone figures and paths, but a living, breathing space filled with secrets and quiet mysteries that linger long after the final footsteps fade into the night. Pinewood Park stretches across rolling fields lined with towering pines, their trunks standing like silent sentinels. Sunlight filters through the branches, casting dappled patterns across the grass and winding paths. The park is dotted with wooden statues of children and animals, carved with careful detail, frozen in moments of play and curiosity. On first glance, the park appears serene, even inviting, yet those who linger long enough begin to sense a subtle, unsettling energy that lingers just beneath the surface. Visitors often notice that the statues are not entirely static. When attention drifts and eyes wander, the positions of the figures seem to shift slightly. A child once facing a swing might now stand near a tree, the tilt of the head altered as if observing the living. Animals that were crouched on the grass appear to have taken a step forward, ears pointed and eyes focused. These movements are subtle, almost imperceptible, yet enough to make travelers question their perception. The park becomes a space where stillness and motion intertwine, leaving an impression that Pinewood Park, those who enter, leaves an impression that Pinewood Park watches those who enter. Whispers often accompany this phenomenon, faint voices carried by the wind that seem to call out names of passers-by. The sounds are delicate, almost melodic, yet there is an undeniable weight to them, a sense that the voices are aware of the living presence within the park. Some visitors report hearing their own names spoken in a soft cadence, drawing their attention to areas where no one is present. The combination of shifting statues and whispered sounds creates an atmosphere thick with curiosity and unease, compelling travelers to look closer while simultaneously prompting them to step lightly. Shadows stretch across the fields in unnatural ways. The branches of the pine trees create intricate, shifting patterns on the grass, yet observers report that these shadows move with a life of their own. They elongate and bend, seemingly following each step taken along the paths. Even when the sun has set and only moonlight bathes the park, shadows continue to twist and glide in ways that defy explanation. The effect is subtle at first, but persistent, creating a sense that the park itself is aware of every motion, a living entity that watches from the edges of perception. The layout of the park enhances this feeling. Narrow paths wind through clusters of statues, some leading to open fields while others disappear into dense groves of pine. Travelers who pause on benches or near the statues often feel a heightened awareness of their surroundings, a sense that something unseen is present just beyond the edge of vision. Every creak of a branch, every rustle of leaves, is amplified, adding to the immersive tension that fills the air. At dusk, the park transforms. The setting sun casts long, golden beams across the fields, illuminating the wooden figures in stark relief. Statues that appeared benign in daylight can seem alive in the changing light, eyes appearing to glimmer and bodies subtly repositioning. Visitors often report feeling watched from multiple angles, though no human presence exists. The whispers grow softer, almost beckoning, and shadows stretch to meet the figures, merging and separating in a slow, deliberate dance. The park is a stage where perception and reality intermingle, drawing attention to every subtle detail. The statues themselves carry stories etched in their form. Each figure of a child or animal seems caught in a moment of anticipation or play, frozen in time yet imbued with a peculiar vitality. Observers feel that the park preserves these moments, holding them in a suspended reality where the living and the inanimate meet. When the wind rustles through the pine needles, it carries an almost conversational quality, as if the trees themselves participate in the dialogue of the park. It is an environment where every sound, shadow, and movement contributes to the sense of something just beyond comprehension. Night deepens the experience. Moonlight glances off the polished surfaces of the statues, casting long, eerie reflections. Shadows continue to shift independently, stretching toward paths and then retreating into the undergrowth. Whispers become more insistent, naming those who wander too long in the park, drawing them forward with a mix of curiosity and caution. Visitors describe the feeling of invisible eyes tracking their movements, a presence that is simultaneously protective and watchful, observing without intrusion. The park is alive in a way that transcends the ordinary, maintaining a delicate balance between reality and the unseen. Paths eventually lead to the park's edges, where statues are spaced further apart and the trees thin, revealing glimpses of the surrounding landscape. The statues are spaced further apart and the trees thin, revealing glimpses of the surrounding landscape. The trees thin, revealing glimpses of the surrounding landscape. Shadows twist along the grass, and the wind carries names long forgotten, brushing past travelers like fleeting fingers. Shadows twist along the grass, and the wind carries names long forgotten, brushing past travelers like fleeting fingers. The wind carries names long forgotten, brushing past travelers like fleeting fingers. The statues stand frozen yet subtly altered, suggesting that the park has retained the memory of every visitor, every step, and every whispered sound. The statues stand frozen yet subtly altered, suggesting that the park has retained the memory of every visitor, every step, and every whispered sound. The statues stand frozen yet subtly altered, suggesting that the park has retained the memory of every visitor, every step, and every whispered sound. Pinewood Park is a place of quiet attention, where the natural world and the crafted figures coexist in a persistent, enigmatic dialogue. Where the natural world and the crafted figures coexist in a persistent, enigmatic dialogue. In the early hours before dawn, the mist often rises across the fields. Statues appear softened by the haze, their features muted yet expressive. Shadows become diffuse, elongating and blending with the morning light, while whispers fade into the cold air. Travelers leaving the park carry an indelible impression, sensing that Pinewood Park holds memories and attention far beyond what the eye can see. The statues, the shadows, and the whispers remain, preserving a subtle, living narrative that unfolds with every visitor who dares to wander its paths. Pinewood Park captivates with its combination of artistry and mystery. The wooden figures, the shifting shadows, and the whispers of unseen voices create an immersive, atmospheric experience. Every detail from the tilt of a statuette's head to the movement of shadows across the fieldsa invites observation, reflection, and awe. Visitors leave with a sense of having witnessed something beyond ordinary perception, a lingering awareness that the park is both guardian and storyteller, a place where the ordinary becomes extraordinary, and where every step carries the weight of unseen attention. Frostvale Park lies in a secluded valley where fog settles thickly over the landscape, softening the edges of trees, pathways, and the small, scattered statues that populate its grounds. By day, the park is serene, a place where morning light filters through the mist, creating patterns across the damp grass. Visitors come to enjoy quiet walks, the gentle sounds of rustling leaves, and the reflection of fog in puddles along the winding paths. Yet as evening falls, the atmosphere transforms, taking on a weight that is at once captivating and unsettling. The statues in Frostvale Park are simple at first glance, carved in stone with expressions frozen in time. However, those who linger until darkness describe subtle shifts in their positions. A figure that stood at the edge of a path in the afternoon may appear closer to the pond by nightfall. Angles seem altered, limbs repositioned ever so slightly. These changes are never dramatic, but they are enough to unsettle, creating a feeling that the park itself is alive, adjusting and observing. Visitors often report sensations that defy explanation. While walking along the fog-laden paths, some feel a tug at a sleeve or the gentle brush of fingers along an arm. The sensation is fleeting yet undeniable, a reminder that something unseen is present. These experiences are never aggressive, but they instill a growing awareness of being watched and followed, a subtle insistence that the park's mysteries are not entirely passive. The mind strains to understand whether these occurrences are physical or perceptual, leaving an impression that lingers long after leaving the park. Peripheral vision in Frostvale Park seems particularly unreliable. Shapes move at the edges of sight, figures that vanish when looked at directly. A shadow passes between trees, only to be gone when the eyes turn, leaving behind only a sense of space disturbed. Paths that appeared open and familiar moments before now feel obscured, corners that were empty now seem filled with presence. Visitors speak of a heightened sensitivity to the environment, noticing details that go unnoticed during the daylight hours, and a constant anticipation of the unknown. The fog itself plays a role in these phenomena. It diffuses light, creating illusions and hiding details, transforming ordinary features into something eerie and ambiguous. Lamps along the pathways cast long, irregular shadows that twist and stretch, blending with the fog to create forms that seem animate. Sounds are altered as well, carried further or muffled unexpectedly. Footsteps echo unnaturally, and the faint rustle of leaves feels amplified, as if accompanied by unseen movement. Each element combines to heighten the sense that the park is more than a collection of trees and statues. Visitors often describe the sensation of being drawn deeper into the park. Trails that seemed familiar take on new aspects, turning corners that lead to secluded clearings or hidden groves. The statues, with their silent, unwavering gaze, mark these spaces with an almost intentional presence. Occasionally, a figure may appear, distinct and separate from the statues, glimpsed only from the side or in a brief reflection across a puddle. When approached, it vanishes without trace, leaving only the damp fog and the quiet whisper of air moving through the trees. Even the sounds of the park carry a subtle disquiet. Footsteps crunch over frost-covered ground. Water trickles through unseen channels. And the occasional soft exhale of wind brushes across faces. Visitors report moments of stillness where all other sounds vanish, leaving only the park itself as a presence. Time seems to stretch in these moments, minutes becoming hours. The sense of progression slowing as if the valley exists slightly apart from the outside world. The mind becomes more receptive to subtle cues. To movement and sensation that might otherwise be ignored. By nightfall, Frostvale Park achieves its most compelling form. Statues appear to shift in more pronounced ways. Fog deepens into nearly tangible walls. And the air seems charged with unseen observation. Some report figures standing in distant clearings, observing silently before melting into the darkness. Others feel gentle, insistent tugs on clothing, guiding them along paths they might not have chosen. Even familiar routes seem altered, revealing spaces previously unnoticed. As if the park itself is shaping the journey. Morning brings clarity and a sense of relief. Paths once obscured are open and familiar, and the forested edges regain their ordinary texture. Yet those who have walked Frostvale Park after dark carry the memory of its unique atmosphere, the shifting figures, the unseen touches, and the presence felt in peripheral vision. These experiences leave a lasting impression, a subtle awareness that the park is a place where the ordinary and the extraordinary meet. Frostvale Park endures as a site of quiet fascination, where fog, statues, and shadow combine to create a landscape that is simultaneously beautiful and enigmatic. Visitors depart with heightened senses, an awareness of the unseen, and the lingering sensation of having walked through a space that exists on the boundary between the tangible and the mysterious. Its allure is subtle yet undeniable, a place where curiosity invites discovery and the ordinary becomes infused with wonder. Crescentview Park stretches across a quiet neighborhood, centered around a fountain that glimmers under the changing light. Marble statues surround the water, each sculpted with exquisite detail, frozen in poses that suggest grace, contemplation, and subtle motion. During the day, the park is serene, a place where sunlight filters through leafy trees and a gentle breeze stirs the flowers lining the paths. Visitors often pause, captivated by the artistry and the quiet beauty that fills the air. As evening approaches, the park's atmosphere begins to shift. Shadows deepen under the trees, stretching along the winding paths and across the fountain. The air carries a cool, almost tangible tension, as if the park itself is waiting. Travelers report an unsettling sense of being observed, a feeling that Aisa perhaps carved from Stonia follow each movement. The ordinary sounds of evening, the rustling of leaves and the distant call of birds, blend with subtler noises, creating an atmosphere that is both enchanting and unnerving. When night falls, Crescentview Park transforms completely. The marble statues seem to take on life, their forms subtly changing with the shifting moonlight. Observers describe slight movements, the tilt of a head, a shift in posture, or the suggestion of a gesture that was not there before. These small, almost imperceptible changes provoke a profound unease, as if the statues are aware of the presence of those who walk among them. Whispers emanate from the fountain, soft and indistinct, mingling with the gentle ripple of water. Some visitors hear faint cries or murmurs carried on the night air, their source impossible to trace. The sound is fleeting, vanishing when one focuses too intently, leaving only a lingering impression. That the fountain holds memories of another time, voices trapped beneath the surface. Shadows creep along the paths and beneath the trees, moving independently of the natural light. They gather in corners and along walkways, stretching and twisting in ways that defy logic. Travelers often feel a presence just beyond vision, glimpses of figures that vanish when confronted directly. These shadowy forms heighten the sense that Crescentview Park is not merely a collection of stone and water, but a living space that reacts to its visitors. The interaction between light, shadow, and marble creates an environment where perception is constantly tested. Each step along the park's winding paths can reveal a change in a statuette's orientation. A shadow that was not there moments before. Or a sound that seems responsive to movement. This subtle responsiveness ensures that no two visits are ever alike, and each encounter leaves a lasting impression. The park's trees arch overhead, their branches forming natural tunnels that alter perception. Moonlight filters through the leaves, casting intricate patterns across the paths and the fountain. Within these shifting light patterns, the statues take on new forms, their features exaggerated or softened by the glow. Movements that were unnoticed in daylight become pronounced, and the interplay of shadows creates a sense of continual motion. Visitors report that the park seems aware of their presence. Footsteps echo unnaturally, carrying farther than they should or stopping when no one is nearby. The whispers and soft cries appear in response to proximity, creating the impression of a reactive environment. Even when alone, one cannot shake the feeling that Crescentview Park watches, waits, and responds with subtle intent. The marble figures themselves are a source of both beauty and apprehension. Sculpted with attention to detail, they convey emotion through the angles of their faces, the positions of their hands, and the flow of their drapery. In the stillness of night, these artistic expressions take on new significance. Smiles become enigmatic, gazes grow penetrating, and gestures appear deliberate, as if the statues are silently communicating with those who wander the paths. Sounds in the park contribute to its mysterious character. Water splashes against the fountain edge. Leaves rustle in the cool breeze. And shadows seem to shift with accompanying soft noises. The auditory environment magnifies the visual effects, creating an immersive experience that engages every sense. Visitors often describe a heightened awareness, noticing details they might otherwise overlook, as the park envelopes them in a delicate tension, engaging every sense. Crescentview Park's nocturnal character enhances its enigmatic allure. The combination of moonlight, shadows, and stone figures fosters a dynamic environment that is continuously evolving. Movements imperceptible during the day become pronounced. Whispers emerge where there should be none, and the statues seem subtly altered as the observer's attention shifts. Each moment feels unpredictable, ensuring that no visit is ever truly the same. Even the air carries a sense of presence. A cool brush against the skin. A subtle shift in temperature. And the faint feeling of being followed. All contribute to a narrative that is experienced rather than explained. Visitors leave with memories of subtle movements, of whispers and fleeting shadows. And of the sensation that Crescentview Park is alive in ways that cannot be quantified. The park's power lies in its combination of artistry, natural beauty, and subtle supernatural influence. Visitors are drawn into an environment that is at once inviting and unsettling, a place where every glance and step holds the potential for discovery or unease. Crescentview Park demands attention and mindfulness. Its winding paths, sculpted figures, and shifting shadows offer an experience that is immersive, reactive, and unforgettable. Those who wander the park encounter a space where perception, memory, and subtle presence intersect, leaving a lasting impression that draws them back to contemplate its mysteries. By the time visitors leave, the park has etched itself into memory. The echoes of whispers. The glimpses of moving statues. And the shadowy forms under the trees. Crescentview Park is more than stone, water, and vegetation. It is an active participant in the experience. A place where every moment carries the potential for awe, wonder, and lingering curiosity. Crescentview Park remains a space where the ordinary and the extraordinary converge. Every footstep, every glance, every interaction with statues and shadows tells a story that is ongoing and personal. Visitors understand that the park is not passive, it is alive with subtle movements, whispers, and unseen observers, creating a hauntingly memorable experience that lingers long after night falls. Thank you, my dear friend, for exploring the haunted small-town parks of Ohio with me tonight. The parks seem innocent by day, but after dark, they reveal the restless spirits and strange movements that linger in the shadows. Some visitors leave shaken. Some never return. And some find the whispers following them long after they leave the park behind. If you ever wander through Ohio at night, remember these tales. Step carefully, watch the statues, and beware the shadows that seem to move on their own. Would you dare spend a night among these haunted parks, or would you retreat to the safety of the town lights? Rest well, my friend, until our next haunted journey.